Chapter 301. A misunderstanding. It is all a misunderstanding. The world fell into a chilling silence. Everyone stood frozen, their hearts hammered by waves of shock and profound dread. Ancestor Tian You was a false god, a supreme being, yet he had been killed in an instant. This was a master who stood at the very peak of the Xuantian realm. How could he die so easily? Even a half-step true god should not be this terrifying. Old man, I told you I was not bluffing, did I not? Ancestor Jiang Changshou looked toward Jiang Xuan. His lifelong reputation had almost been tarnished by that demonic abyss. Fortunately, Tian You had been cooperative enough to offer up his own neck, providing a perfect opportunity for the ancestor to prove his might. Do you still doubt me? Jiang Xuan glanced at the severed head of Tian You, whose eyes remained wide with disbelief. He looked back at Jiang Changshou and gave a firm thumbs up. Ancestor, you are incredible. Jiang Changshou smiled with satisfaction. Lately, this boy had become increasingly irreverent. Even the young girl had picked up bad habits, going as far as blackmailing him for his very bed. It had reached the point where they dared to question his strength. If he did not show his hand now, there was no telling how the boy would treat him in the future. It has been many years, Senior Jiang, and your prowess remains unrivaled. Following Jiang Changshou's earlier reprimand, Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming and the Owl King had charged into the fray. Faced with 18 venerables, the two moved as if through an empty field, dealing death with effortless grace. They paused briefly to nod toward Jiang Changshou in a show of deep respect. Beneath their solemn expressions lay a complex mix of awe and lingering fear. They had once been taught a harsh lesson by Jiang Xuan, and their own protectors had been humbled by the man standing before them now. Those memories were not ones they enjoyed revisiting. The two fought with everything they had, turning slaughter into a form of dark art. Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming wielded 3 blood-stained blades, conjuring a vast crimson sea that slit the throats of one venerable after another. The Owl King was more primal. His fists, wrapped in malevolent energy, shattered 8 kings into dust. So it is you two boys. Jiang Changshou recognized them. Watching them fight, he nodded slowly. Not bad. It seems you have not wasted these years. With Brother Jiang as our motivation, we did not dare to slacken, they replied. 800 years ago, in their era, Jiang Xuan had suppressed them entirely with a single sword. That desperate gap in power had forced them to spend years simply stabilizing their own resolve. It was a unique kind of helplessness. One moment you finally reach the Tianyuan realm and think you have a chance to compete. The next, you see your rival hunting down venerables as if it were sport. How is Brother Jiang these days? The Owl King crushed the throat of a king and turned to Jiang Changshou, his voice low. Jiang Changshou's expression darkened. He shook his head. His life tablet is not broken, but there has been no word. He may truly have fallen in that forbidden zone. The blood blades tore through the last Netherworld venerable. With a final roar, the Owl King crushed the last enemy. Was it over? Ming Kong was paralyzed. A paralyzing fear filled his soul, making him tremble uncontrollably. He had rallied the experts of the Great Nether Immortal Dynasty and allied with the Netherworld Race. He was supposed to be the master of this battlefield. How had the situation reversed in a heartbeat? The venerables were dead, and even Ancestor Tian You was gone. Ming Kong looked at the head on the ground and fled. Damn it! Why is Jiang Bai's protector so powerful? Luo Ming and the Owl King watched him run, but did not give chase. First, they were still within the enemy formation and needed to ensure the safety of their own prodigies. Second, hunting a junior was beneath them. It was better to leave him as a stepping stone for the younger generation. They walked back toward Jiang Changshou, their faces grim. Brother Jiang is a man of miracles and great fortune. He must be safe. They were not merely comforting the old man. They truly believed it. Based on their history of being crushed by Jiang Xuan, they knew he was a creator of miracles. Nothing could stop him. A forbidden zone might claim a false god, but it could never hold Jiang Xuan. Jiang Xuan watched the two newcomers intently. He did not care about the fleeing Ming Kong. He wanted to hear more about his father's legendary past. Suddenly, 3 hazy figures emerged from the depths of the Copper Demon City. Their auras were eerie and supreme, seemingly merging with the heavens and the great reincarnation formation. The array covering tens of thousands of miles surged with power. Black chains and restrictions solidified into physical form. Even the faces of Luo Ming and the Owl King turned pale under the sudden pressure. You all seem to be enjoying your conversation. Do you hold the Netherworld Race in such low esteem? A terrifying pressure rolled over them like a tidal wave. Everyone's expression changed. These were false gods. 3 of them. Jiang Changshou waved a hand to dispel the pressure for his companions. He squinted at the 3 approaching figures, feeling a sense of confusion. How had these false gods managed to sneak into the Xuantian realm? Unlike the lesser minions, a false god crossing over should have caused a massive disturbance. The 3 Netherworld false gods stood high in the sky, their cold gazes sweeping over the crowd before settling on Jiang Changshou. Jiang Changshou of the Jiang family? A half-step true god? You have ruined our plans. Today, you shall die. Jiang Changshou was a half-step true god with the power to kill Tian You instantly, but the three felt confident. With the empowerment of the formation, they believed they could suppress him. In Jiang Changshou's aged eyes, a murderous intent flared. It had been a long time since he had exerted himself. This would be a fine opportunity to kill to his heart's content. An ancient tripod flew forth, flashing with profound light and manifesting the shadows of the four sacred beasts. Just as the two forces were about to collide, a sudden change erupted from the demonic abyss. Booms echoed as overwhelming demonic energy surged in every direction, slamming against the Netherworld formation. 7 followers of the true demon emerged slowly from the abyss, their statue shattering the very void. They surveyed the battlefield, their eyes burning with rage as they looked at the formation overhead. How dare a lowly race from the gutters think they can stand above the demons? The 7 followers struck. In an instant, they obliterated dozens of Netherworld warriors. The faces of the 3 false gods turned pale. They immediately abandoned their attack on Jiang Changshou to intercept the newcomers. Jiang Changshou was an enemy, but the integrity of their plan and the formation were paramount. Furthermore, with the 3 of them anchoring the formation, they believed it was an unbreakable cage. Even a half-step true god like Jiang Changshou could not escape. They would deal with the demons first, then return to finish off the trapped survivors. It is a misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. Chapter 302, Raising Copper Demon City. This was an accident. My Netherworld race had no intention of becoming enemies with the demons. If you have demands, we can negotiate. The 3 false gods of the Netherworld chose not to meet force with force. The power of a true demon was beyond question, and a direct confrontation offered them no benefit. It was better to talk and offer each other a way out. As long as they could slaughter and reincarnate every living being within the great array, their primary plot would proceed as planned. The 7 followers of the true demon glanced at them but said nothing, wisely ceasing their killing for the moment. A misunderstanding? The cold, indifferent voice of the true demon drifted out from the depths of the abyss, dripping with mockery. What right do you have to speak of misunderstandings to me? The faces of the 3 false gods darkened, but they suppressed their fury. Their leader spoke in a low, heavy tone. You require time to recover your strength, and we require time for our machinations. We both seek the providence of this great era and the secrets of the Xuantian realm. Our goals are aligned. If we fall into conflict now and wage war, it will only result in mutual loss. Furthermore, our preparations would be exposed to the humans of Xuantian. I believe that is a scenario you would prefer to avoid as well. The true demon laughed, a sound like cracking ice. Spare me the useless talk. You want me to stop interfering with your race? Fine. Show me your sincerity. Because of that Jiang family monster, the demon had been forced to expend the foundations of a former life prematurely. Though much strength had been recovered, it was the result of overextending those reserves. For a long time to come, resources would be a primary concern. Whether for self-cultivation or expanding a domain, resources were the one thing that could not be bypassed. Now, the Netherworld race stood before the demon as a potential source of wealth. There was no reason not to accept this. The 3 false gods looked at one another, feeling a strange sense of unease. Was this not the supreme being who had once conquered the myriad heavens? How could the demon be so easy to talk to? However, the current situation left them no time for doubt. Every moment wasted increased their risk. They had no choice but to agree. After a brief hesitation, they spoke with pained hearts. 100 Tao medicines and 5 true god weapons. Furthermore, we promise on behalf of the Netherworld race that we are willing to befriend the demons. In the future, each shall thrive by their own merit. My race will never lay a finger on any territory occupied by the demons. Agreed. The true demon answered without hesitation. Taking the benefits now was the priority. As for the future, once full strength was restored and the demon forces rebuilt, this small race living in the gutters would simply be swallowed whole. Seeing the agreement, the 3 false gods breathed a sigh of relief. They tossed a storage ring to one of the followers. With the demon stabilized, they could finish their plan. As for the days to come, how could they allow another to sleep beside their own bed? When the main force of the Netherworld truly descended, this true demon would be the first they carved into pieces. The 7 followers stepped back into the abyss. The false gods watched them go, then added, "We have one more request. Those Netherworld soldiers within the abyss are of no use to you. Can you return them to us?" Those soldiers were the geniuses and monsters of various Xuantian sections. They were a vital link in the plan to control the different factions from the shadows. The situation in Xuantian was complex, with many hidden powers. The Netherworld did not dare to descend with brute force yet. A slow, secret annexation was far safer. After all, the ancient journals left by their ancestors suggested that the Xuantian realm might be connected to the lost ancestral realm. Caution was a necessity, certainly, but it will cost more, the true demon chuckled. The 3 false gods looked grim, but they produced another storage ring. 30 Tao medicines. Is this sufficient? It is. One of the false gods threw the ring into the abyss. Deep demonic energy erupted, and the 1,000 surviving Netherworld soldiers were cast out of the hole. Notably, Wang Su, who had been feigning death, was among them. With the demon issue resolved and their soldiers returned, the three false gods allowed a small smile to appear. They turned their attention back to the experts trapped under the reincarnation array, and specifically to Jiang Changshou. Now, they could focus on business. Leave no one alive within the array, one false god ordered coldly. As you command. The Netherworld experts flew out once more, reigniting the slaughter. The masters and protectors of the various sects were filled with terror and rage. They could only dig in their heels and resist with everything they had, praying that their respective organizations would notice the disturbance and send reinforcements. At that moment, Ming Kong returned. He had appeared to flee, but in reality, he had used the secret orders of Ancestor Tian You to gather every expert the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty could mobilize. A chilling, murderous aura rolled across the landscape. 3,000 earth profounds, 800 Tian Yuan, 100 Dao merging experts, and 20 venerables. He had even used threats and bribes to bring another ancestor from the false god realm. To ensure speed, he had spent hundreds of millions of spirit stones to activate the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty's super teleportation array. He had laid every card he possessed on the table. He wanted to see if, by joining forces with the Netherworld and revealing his full hand, he could finally kill Jiang Bei. Jiang Bei, today, even if you grow wings, you shall not escape. Ming Kong locked his gaze onto Jiang Xuan, his voice a savage snarl. Jiang Xuan and his group had already followed the Owl King back to the inner city of Copper Demon City. It had to be said that the 30,000 soldiers of the Owl King's Heavenly Owl army possessed a bravery that even immortals or demons would find difficult to match. In a short time, they had driven the Netherworld experts out of the inner city and were now using the inner fortifications to resist the invasion. Jiang Xuan stood atop the iron ramparts manifested by the inner city array. He met Ming Kong's gaze and smiled faintly. Enough with the useless nonsense. You conspired with the Netherworld, betrayed the human race, and plotted to enslave the geniuses of this world to control their factions from the shadows. Your crimes are too numerous to record. Today, it is not just me. Every human present would skin you alive if given the chance. You should worry less about me and more about how you will survive their collective fury. The surrounding experts and protectors heard this and felt their pupils contract. Everything became clear. Their rage intensified as they looked at Ming Kong. While fending off the Netherworld assassins, they roared at him. Ming Kong, Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Have you lost your minds? You dare to conspire with the Netherworld and betray humanity? Ming Kong sneered. Xuantian is barren, and myriad races covet it. When the Great Era fully descends, the human race will surely face catastrophe. In the future, you will all realize that I am the true savior of humanity. Then, with a sweeping wave of his hand, Ming Kong commanded the host of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Raise Copper Demon City. Leave no survivors. Understood. The experts of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty unleashed their killing arts and divine abilities, raining destruction down upon the city. Chapter 303. A sword is a tool for killing. The atmosphere grew heavy as the pressure mounted. Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming watched his 3 blood-stained blades dance before him, casting a sidelong glance at the Owl King. Shall we compete again? The Owl King let out a boisterous laugh. Do you think I fear you? Luo Ming smiled thinly. He stepped out into the void, a 100-foot sea of blood cascading from his crimson mantle. The 3 blades leaped through the viscous tides, their cold light severing the throats of enemy experts with every flash. Observing this, the Owl King let out a low growl. Where is the Heavenly Owl army? Present. 30,000 soldiers roared in unison. Their black, murderous intent pierced the very clouds. Defend the inner city at all costs. The Owl King commanded. Kill, kill, kill. The soldiers shrieked, their collective killing intent forming a physical wave of terror that resonated with the city's iron ramparts. It felt as if a supreme beast was awakening from the abyss, baring its fangs to devour the world. Jiang Xuan and Luo Xinglan were shaken. The Heavenly Owl army was famous throughout Xuantian for its brutality, but seeing their raw ferocity in person was a different matter entirely. Truly worthy of the name, Jiang Xuan remarked in awe. The Owl King looked at Jiang Xuan with a meaningful smile, his eyes suggesting he had seen through a great deal. The Heavenly Owl army is decent, but compared to your father's 108 heavenly soldiers, they still fall short. My father? Jiang Xuan froze. A sudden jolt of alarm struck him. Had the Owl King realized his true identity? Before he could press for answers, the Owl King shook his head with a laugh and transformed into a dark shadow. Enveloped in the silhouette of a gargantuan owl made of malevolent energy, he began harvesting lives. Beneath the great reincarnation array, a cataclysmic battle erupted. Using the inner city as a pivot, 2 massive camps clashed in a world-shaking struggle. The experts from various sects, finding themselves individually weak, instinctively converged on the inner city to seek safety in numbers and wait for reinforcements. High above, a different battle took place. This was the domain of the false gods. Jiang Changshou manipulated his ancient tripod, From its radiant glow, the phantoms of the four sacred beasts emerged. The azure dragon coiled, the vermilion bird spread its wings, the white tiger roared, and the black tortoise lay in wait. Opposite him, the three false gods of the netherworld merged their forms with the great array, their bodies flickering between reality and illusion. Beside them, Ancestor Tian You of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty held aloft a sun-moon crown, its brilliance tearing through the void. Jiang Changshou, though you are a half-step true god, you die today? Tian You snarled. Through Ming Kong's message, he had learned of Tian Yu's death at this man's hands. He was terrified and enraged. If these witnesses were not silenced forever, the entire world would know of the dynasty's pact with the Netherworld. If that happened, the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty was finished. Tian You knew exactly how deep the waters of the Xuantian realm ran. Why else would the dynasty, backed secretly by the Netherworld, fail to conquer the central god state even in this era of barren spiritual energy? To look no further than their rival, the Dacian Immortal Dynasty, there were many old monsters sleeping there who had survived since ancient or even primordial times. Many were high-level deities. The hierarchy of the divine realm went from false god to true god, then heavenly god, and finally god venerable. Beyond that lay the saint realm. This was the reason for his neutrality and his ambiguous attitude toward the Netherworld. Xuantian appeared to have few false gods and no true gods for nearly 1,000,000 years, but the ancient lineages from the primordial era were full of hidden players. If the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty rushed to join the Netherworld and the secret came out, they would be torn apart by the combined fury of those hidden powers. But that old fool Tian You had insisted on supporting Ming Kong and surrendering fully to the Netherworld. Now he was dead. Tian You didn't care about the death itself, but the exposure of their plot had placed the dynasty on a roasting spit. He could no longer stand by. If these people survived and the array was broken, the dynasty could never wash away the stain. They would become public enemies. Facing the encirclement of four false gods, Jiang Changshou picked at his ear, looking utterly bored. Both tactically and mentally, he held nothing but contempt for his opponents. Very well. It has been a long time since I moved. My bones are getting stiff. I will use you all for a bit of practice. Jiang Changshou smiled faintly. I should show that boy whether or not this old false god is actually false. 1 against 4? Tian You sneered. You killed a withered old man like Tian You whose blood was dry and whose realm was collapsing, and now you think you are invincible? Jiang Changshou had already moved. You talk too much. The ancient tripod surged. The phantoms of the four sacred beasts occupied the 4 cardinal directions, locking down the void and creating 4 isolated domains. Each beast entangled one false god. Then, Jiang Changshou reached out and summoned the green blade from Jiang Xuan's hand. His voice rang in Jiang Xuan's ear. Boy, watch closely. This is how you use a sword. The crisp ring of the blade sounded like a pure note of the Tao, echoing across the heavens. A single point of light illuminated the dark battlefield. Jiang Changshou's figure vanished. In the next heartbeat, he appeared behind the Netherworld false god fighting the azure dragon. The green blade erupted with the full power of a true god weapon. Its edge, tempered by the great Tao, pierced through the protection of the reincarnation array as easily as if it were cutting through curd. It slid through the false god's defenses and straight into his heart. Sharp sword energy, carrying brilliant blood, geysered out from the false god's body. How are you so fast? The false god stammered, his eyes bulging in disbelief. With a flick of his wrist, Jiang Changshou shattered the enemy. Another instant kill. Another false god had fallen. Shock rippled through the battlefield. Was the gap between a false god and a half-step true god really this vast? Jiang Xuan was stunned, a sharp light reflecting in his eyes as he replayed that strike. In that moment, Jiang Changshou's voice echoed in Jiang Xuan's mind. Boy, at its core, a sword is a tool for killing. If you are going to kill, then just kill. Your current attainment is only at the sword domain level. Do not waste time on flowery, useless things. Using the way of the sword to control lightning or fire. The power increases, certainly, but is that still the sword? Remember, sacrificing the root for the branches is a great taboo. This applies to the sword, and it applies to the long path of cultivation itself. Jiang Xuan stood frozen, struck by a sudden realization. A sword is a tool for killing. If you are going to kill, then just kill. Pure sword energy began to radiate from his body. A terrifying, spine-chilling sharpness shot toward the sky. Luo Xinglan and Ming Fan looked over in shock. Had he just entered a state of sudden enlightenment? Such comprehension was monstrous. Jiang Changshou glanced at the meditating Jiang Xuan and smiled with satisfaction. The boy was truly his father's son. His talent for the sword was incredible. He turned his gaze toward the remaining 3. They were clearly terrified. Their movements against the spirit phantoms were becoming clumsy and erratic. Jiang Changshou shook his head. How could such trash be in the same realm as him? His eyes settled on Ancestor Tian You. Tian You felt an unnatural chill wash over his entire body. His scalp went numb, his soul trembled, and his heart pounded with terror. Instantly killing Tian You. then instantly killing a netherworld false god. Was this man really just a half-step true god? Who was he trying to fool? Chapter 304. The True God Tribulation. Jiang Changshou gripped his sword and walked toward Ancestor Tian You. The clear ring of the blade vibrated through the void once more. Then, his figure vanished. Tian You felt his heart leap as a sudden, biting chill took hold of his senses. Instinctively, he summoned a set of mysterious black armor, a true god weapon, to protect his body. Deep radiance erupted from the armor, manifesting a savage silhouette filled with the complex rules of the Great Tao. Tian You himself shifted 1,000 feet away in an instant. His face was pale, and cold sweat dripped from his brow. A sword tip flickered into existence, shattering the savage silhouette. Jiang Changshou appeared exactly where Tian You had stood a moment prior. He looked up at the ancestor, raised a surprised eyebrow, and chuckled. "You certainly have a lot of good toys." The black armor floated before Tian You's chest as he stared fixatedly at Jiang Changshou. His eyes were dark, filled with caution and suspicion. Was the half-step true god realm truly this powerful? Or was it simply that this specific man was a monster? He could no longer tell. "Hurry up. If you do not give this your all, we will all die here today." Tian You roared at the two netherworld false gods. Those two were still entangled with the phantoms of the four sacred beasts, clearly trying to hide their trump cards. He did not know whether to praise their confidence or curse their stupidity. The two netherworld false gods exchanged a look of frustration. They had indeed intended to hold back. The waters of the Xuantian realm were deep, and it was always better to keep something in reserve. However, they never expected Jiang Changshou's combat power to be so overwhelming that he could instantly kill one of their own. The bodies of the Netherworld race were dozens of times stronger than those of humans and possessed near-immortal properties. It should have been impossible to be killed so quickly by someone in the same realm. Yet, Jiang Changshou had done it. The two false gods finally summoned their own true god weapons. Ancient, evil auras spread like a rising tide, threatening to annihilate all laws in the surrounding void. In the false god realm, drawing such a weapon was the universal sign of a fight to the death. At this stage, a practitioner cannot fully control the power of the Great Tao without a true god weapon to act as a medium. One of the netherworld false gods held a pitch-black array plate aloft with both hands. He activated a lethal formation, sending ink-like malevolent energy surging to lock down the space around Jiang Changshou. A spine-chilling pressure rolled through the air. The other false god gripped a long spear and transformed into a blur of motion. He charged at Jiang Changshou, his spear manifesting a ghostly image of pure slaughter. The air froze instantly, shattering like ice. The strike seemed to lock onto Jiang Changshou's very soul, aiming to pin him to the void. Seeing this, Tian You felt his confidence return. He lunged forward as well, his black armor glowing as he summoned the vast power of the Way of Water. He rode a towering wave of spectral ocean toward Jiang Changshou. Jiang Changshou let out a light laugh. A rare look of focus appeared in his aged eyes. It had been a long time since he had fought such a straightforward battle. He might as well enjoy it. Besides, it was time. "It is time to break through," he whispered to himself. Earlier, his failure to break the defenses of the demonic abyss had put Jiang Xuan in danger. Although the arrival of the mountain ancestor prevented a tragedy, Jiang Changshou felt a lingering sense of guilt. What if the mountain ancestor had not arrived in time? As Jiang Xuan's protector, he felt responsible. If his desire for safety kept him from breaking through, and that hesitation led to his ward's harm, he could never forgive himself. Furthermore, the Xuantian realm was changing. The signs of a great era were appearing, evidenced by the revival of the true demon and the emergence of the Netherworld race. A false god was simply no longer enough to guard the future. The pressure from three false gods fighting at full strength might be exactly what he needed to shatter his bottleneck and reach the true god realm. This was the method Jiang Xuan always used, seeking strength through battle and fighting his way to the peak. In the days Jiang Changshou protected Xuantian, the younger man would pick a fight every time he was close to a breakthrough, leaving the elder to clean up the mess. "Master, if you are still in this world, please protect your disciple and let me reach the true God realm smoothly. If you have already passed on, then let your spirit watch over me." He looked up at the sky, which was still obscured by the great array. A 98% chance of success, he thought. "I truly have no confidence at all." Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming and the Owl King were still competing, carving a path of destruction. Each stood atop a growing mountain of corpses. The venerables of the Netherworld and the Great Ming Dynasty were terrified. Though they shared the same rank, the gap in strength was a canyon they could not cross. Between the rank-and-file soldiers, the situation was a stalemate. The 30,000 heavenly owls held the ramparts with savage bravery, making the inner city an iron fortress. Ming Kong watched the battlefield, his expression darkening. How could he still not kill Jiang Bei? "Master, I have a plan to ensure Jiang Bei falls right here," Wang Su whispered, having flown to Ming Kong's side. Ming Kong glanced at him, surprised. "You are still alive?" Wang Su gave a sheepish smile. Ming Kong didn't care for the details and asked for the plan. Wang Su leaned in and whispered his suggestion. Ming Kong's eyes lit up. Ming Kong flew out toward the ramparts. His voice amplified so everyone on the battlefield could hear him. Jiang Bei, do you have the courage to come down and fight me to the death? If you win, the array will be opened, and you may all leave. It was a blatant trap. He was giving the trapped survivors a hope of life, knowing that even if Jiang Xuan didn't want to risk it, the others would pressure him to fight. Ming Kong was in the Tianyuan realm. He was certain he could crush a wounded Jiang Bei in a fair fight. But then, the world shook. The sky cracked. Specifically, the reincarnation array covering the heavens shattered. The battle ground to a halt as everyone looked up in shock, including Ming Kong. They saw Jiang Changshou drive his sword through the heart of Ancestor Tian You. A burst of sword energy tore the ancestor to shreds, raining brilliant blood down upon the city. Then, radiant pillars of light erupted from Jiang Changshou's body. A vast aura, far exceeding that of any false god, shook the world and finished off the remaining fragments of the array. Everyone was frozen, unable to look away. His presence was terrifying. A group of useless trash, Jiang Changshou grumbled, waving his sword to flick away the remains of Tian Chao. You couldn't even give me enough pressure. I had to do it myself. Ignoring the two remaining, horrified netherworld false gods, he looked up at the sky. Beyond the broken array, thick, dark clouds were gathering. The tribulation had arrived. Chapter 305, The Ancestor Emerges. Rumble. Within the piling thunderclouds, 10,000 lightning serpents danced in a wild frenzy. The power of the great Tao raged, and a terrifying aura surged violently, shaking the heavens for 10,000 miles. The sky over the entire central god state seemed shrouded in mysterious laws. Countless millions of living beings looked up at the sky. A primal terror filled them, making their bodies tremble and their souls flicker with dread. They wore expressions of pure horror, wondering if a world-ending natural disaster had arrived. The ancient lineages with long-standing inheritances knew exactly what this was, the true god tribulation. Yet, because they knew, they were even more shocked and terrified. Across the Xuantian realm, in various secret lands and ancient forbidden zones, countless old monsters who had slept for ages were awakened by the terrifying ripples. They cast suspicious and startled gazes toward the source. This is the true god tribulation. The great era has not yet arrived. The great Tao is still difficult to manifest, and the spiritual energy has not yet recovered. How can someone break through the shackles and forcefully enter the true god realm? How is this possible? Madman. In a certain ancient forbidden zone, a supreme being let out a low growl. The sound of a near-dead great Tao vibrated through the world, annihilating many rules of the surroundings. Spiritual energy has not recovered, and the Tao is hidden. This is the binding of the supreme order. Breaking through to become a true god is undoubtedly like climbing to the heavens. The intensity of this true god tribulation is several times stronger than in past ages. Breaking through now is simply seeking death. Someone is one step ahead of me. In the ancestral land of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty, the Emperor of Dacian opened his eyes. His deep gaze pierced through the void and landed on the territory of Copper Demon City, locking onto the person breaking through. His brow furrowed slightly in surprise. It is him. Within the magnificent hall of the Yin Yang sacred ground, the Yin Yang Saint Lord slowly opened his eyes. His left eye was as black as an abyss, while his right eye was a milky, hollow white. The hazy Yin Yang Tao flowed around his body. A profound aura emanated from him, mixed with the vast breath of a false god. Finally, I have preliminary mastery over the complete Yin Yang Tao. Although I have not thoroughly fused with the Yin body from my past life, I have barely touched the false god realm. The Yin Yang Saint Lord revealed a smile. Despite many unexpected turns, he had still become the first false god of this era as he wished. But in the next moment, the terrifying ripples of the true god tribulation arrived. The Yin Yang Saint Lord suddenly stood up, his face changing repeatedly. Someone is actually attempting to break through to the true god realm? How is this possible? The world is shackled. No one could even break the barrier of the false god realm. He had only succeeded by taking a shortcut through his past life-seen body. Who is it? The Saint Lord's face was as dark as stagnant water. He immediately sent a secret command to his past life-seen body, which had already headed to the Jiang family, telling it to accelerate. He had to admit he was panicking. He thought he stood above all others, every step ahead of the world. But now he was dead wrong. Someone was already breaking through to the true god realm. He could not tolerate this. He had to speed up, complete the plan for the Earth Emperor's secret realm, take the long-lived Jiang family into his hands, fuse completely with his past life, and fully master the Yin Yang Tao. In the immortal Zhao family, Zhao Fuyao was startled out of her secluded meditation. Who dared to break through to the true god realm at this time? Granny Seven Stars stepped out of the void, her aged eyes flickering with complexity. She whispered, reporting to the goddess, "It is the false god of the Jiang family. Jiang Changshou. It is him." Zhao Fuyao's eyes sparkled. Remembering the previous banquet at the heaven-climbing tower, she couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. After a moment of contemplation, she instructed, prepare 10 Dao medicines and deliver them personally to the Jiang family to congratulate Jiang Changshou on ascending to the true God realm. Granny Seven Stars was stunned. The great era hasn't arrived yet. The Dao is hidden, and the world is shackled. Jiang Changshou might not succeed in his breakthrough, right? Zhao Fuyao shook her head and smiled. It is precisely because breaking through at this stage is extremely difficult. If Jiang Changshou did not have at least an 80% certainty, why would he choose to break through now? With that kind of confidence, the breakthrough is only natural. Furthermore, Zhao Fuyao's eyes deepened as the image of Jiang Xuan flashed through her mind. She whispered, he is that person's protector after all. In the ancestral land of the Jiang family, a vast galaxy flowed backward, and the divine tomb shimmered with ancient light. The soul consciousness of Ancestor Mountain and Ancestor Gu formed projections, standing above the ancestral land. Their gazes pierced the void toward Copper Demon City in the central god state. Beneath their calm faces lay quite unquiet emotions. This kid, why did he suddenly stop being so cautious? Ancestor Gu asked in surprise. Ancestor Mountain's eyes lowered, a hint of gravity flashing in them. The situation in the demonic abyss is likely even more severe than we imagined. Wasn't the true demon suppressed by you? Ancestor Gu was stunned, then realized what was happening. His expression changed instantly. What did Jiang Xuan and the others encounter that would force Jiang Changshou to actively break through to the true God realm to find a way to survive? Should we take a trip there? Ancestor Gu suggested. Ancestor Mountain nodded. Not to mention the unknown situation in the demonic abyss and the potential crisis Jiang Xuan faced. Jiang Changshou himself was in great danger while crossing the true God tribulation. They needed to protect him. From the depths of the profound galaxy, a laughing voice rang out. You two ancestors are old and stiff. Don't go meddling blindly. I'll go to where Changshou is. Ancestor Mountain and Ancestor Gu looked over in astonishment. They saw a burly figure tear through the void with his bare hands and vanish into the distance. Both ancestors fell silent. After a moment, Ancestor Gu spoke with a strange expression. Hasn't that kid been wandering outside for 100,000 years? How is his lifeblood not dried up yet? Ancestor Mountain's eyes were deep. After a long time, he sighed softly. The lifespan limit for a false god is 50,000 years. Jiang Changshou is a master of the way of caution, so his lifespan increased quite a bit. But this kid, Copper Demon City. In this era before the Great Age, the world's shackles remained. The power of the true God tribulation was naturally terrifying. Even in its initial stage, it showed a power capable of destroying the world. 10,000 lightning serpents formed of lightning Dao power danced in the sky, like a supreme lightning prison meant to wipe out all living beings. The reincarnation array, which had merged with the Netherworld false gods and could trap even a false god, was like paper before this true God tribulation. Even before the lightning fell, the mere leaked energy shattered the array, causing cracks to spiderweb across it. The imprisonment covering tens of thousands of miles was instantly extinguished. The experts of various factions were terrified, but upon seeing this, they were overjoyed. They hurriedly crushed their transmission talismans to call for reinforcements from their sects. In their minds, Senior Jiang Changshou was not forcefully crossing the tribulation because he was confident in becoming a true god, but rather to help them escape and bring in powerful help. This self-sacrificing act left them filled with respect and emotion. At this time, the ancient factions alerted by the true God tribulation received the distress messages from their experts. They learned of the plot involving the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty and the Netherworld Race and were furious. One by one, they invited their false god ancestors to rush to the rescue. The Great Ming Immortal Dynasty actually dared to conspire with the Netherworld, betray humanity, and attack their people. They were simply tired of living. As humans, they were duty-bound to exterminate alien races. Furthermore, since the Jiang family false god was risking his life to break the array for everyone, they could not sit by and watch. By now, Jiang Changshou had walked out of the array. He ascended high into the sky to meet the heavenly tribulation. Looking at the thunderclouds gathering powerful energy, his brow furrowed slightly. A hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. This true God tribulation, why is it so much weaker than he had imagined? Chapter 306. You call this a false god? However, Jiang Changshou did not dare to be careless. The great era had not yet arrived, and the world was still bound by an insurmountable order of shackles. The power of a true God tribulation in this era was far greater than the golden ages recorded in ancient texts. Compared to the ancient period, the intensity of this tribulation had increased dozens of times over. This was one of the reasons why he had been unwilling to break through, despite having a 98% chance of success. I must not be negligent. Caution above all else. A true God tribulation under these shackles can never be as simple as it looks on the surface, Jiang Changshou thought to himself. Immediately, Jiang Changshou activated his ancient cauldron. Phantoms of the four sacred beasts circled his body, forming a specialized defense. He also summoned a piece of black armor, creating a dark barrier to protect his chest. This was the true god weapon he had taken from Ancestor Tian You. After a quick refinement, it provided a decent layer of protection. Then, he threw out an ancient array disc that expanded into a vast, defensive holy formation. He twisted his fingers into ancient hand seals, summoning a divine phantom to shield his body. He began chanting an obscure, nameless scripture, calling forth a Taoist projection from the end of the void. Finally, a crack opened between his eyebrows, revealing a magnificent divine court where the shadows of thousands of celestial beings sat in meditation. To the utter disbelief of the onlookers, Jiang Changshou unleashed 9 powerful defensive measures in rapid succession. These included true god weapons, holy formations, Taoist arts, divine summons, and grand techniques. Only then did Jiang Changshou feel a slight sense of peace. That should be enough, he thought. Without further delay, Jiang Changshou stepped into the thunderclouds and began his tribulation. The heavens roared. Pitch-black lightning flickered with a deep, mysterious light that seemed to illuminate the entire central god state. Witnessing this scene, everyone was stunned and filled with wonder. Senior Jiang Changshou had too many hidden cards. Senior Jiang is still Senior Jiang. Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming and the Owl King exclaimed in shock. Even Jiang Xuan was shaken by the sheer scale of the display. He had believed his own foundations were deep enough, but compared to his ancestor, he realized there was always a higher heaven and a more capable man. So, this is the true essence of the way of caution? Jiang Xuan's eyes sparkled. He felt he still had much to learn. He had just experienced a sudden enlightenment, raising his sword attainment to the middle stage of the Tao domain, and he had felt somewhat proud. Now, he realized the path was endless and required more effort. I should get closer to great-grandfather in the future, Jiang Xuan said, turning to look at the young girl. The little girl was currently wide-eyed, staring at Jiang Changshou in shock. She nodded vigorously, her large eyes blinking as she smiled, and said, I understand, Daddy. Even the true demon in the abyss and its 7 followers were profoundly shaken. How could such a terrifying false god be born in this barren Xuantian realm? The Jiang family. The true demon's eyes were filled with alarm. He felt a sudden stroke of luck that he had backed down earlier instead of trying to fight the projection of the Jiang family's true god. If a false god's foundations were this frightening, what about a true god? Meanwhile, the 2 false gods of the Netherworld were frightened out of their wits. Was this really a half-step true god? This was beyond ridiculous. Because he couldn't break through their combined reincarnation array, he simply decided to undergo a tribulation and use the lightning to shatter it? You clearly had the strength to kill us. 1 against 3, didn't you just kill Ancestor Tian You with a single strike? Why did you have to choose this method? Killing us would have achieved the same result. Why must you subject us to this kind of torment and fear? The 2 false gods looked miserable, feeling that death would be a mercy. Their plan was completely ruined. With the array destroyed, the human experts had certainly sent messages back to their respective factions. The Netherworld race was now fully exposed. But now, it was no longer just about the plan. Failing the plan was one thing. It would only alert the humans and cause them to prepare. In the future, once the spatial tunnel was fully constructed, the Netherworld race would still descend with power. It would just require more effort. However, Jiang Changshou's tribulation made them truly panic. What kind of monster would face the shackles of the world to break through so aggressively? What kind of monster could possess such terrifying hidden foundations? They could not imagine it. Most importantly, if this man truly survived the tribulation and ascended to the true god realm, how high would his strength reach? Would he be invincible among true gods? Or would he be able to challenge heavenly gods? Furthermore, it was common knowledge that the great era was coming. Once spiritual energy recovered and the myriad laws reappeared, what level would a man with Jiang Changshou's foundations reach? A heavenly god? A god venerable? Or even the saint realm? The 2 Netherworld false gods felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably despite their powerful physical forms. We cannot let this man successfully complete his tribulation. The black-robed false god said. If he succeeds, he will become a nightmare for our race. What can you do? The gray-robed false god asked, feeling helpless and desperate. Blood sacrifice. We will open a temporary spatial tunnel and call forth a true god of the Netherworld. The black-robed false god roared, his eyes filled with murderous intent. The gray-robed false god hesitated. Are we really doing this? Do you have any other choice? Fine. The gray-robed false god gritted his teeth. The 2 descended from the sky and began forming hand seals. Thousands of eerie Taoist runes floated in the air, creating a wicked energy like abyssal demon mist. They drew the lifeblood from every Netherworld warrior present, turning it into writhing blood sigils that sketched out a massive spatial array. The crimson array seeped into the void, carving an endless path through the dark, chaotic currents of nothingness. It led straight to the ancestral land of the Netherworld race. Where is the life-eating sovereign? Please descend and assist us. The black-robed false god shouted. Almost instantly, a withered, pale arm reached out from the deep tunnel. It looked like a monstrous creature from the abyss struggling to break free, crawling out inch by inch. It felt incredibly slow, yet with every inch the owner moved, the world shook more violently. Wailing and crying filled the air as ghostly mist appeared out of nowhere. Everyone's heart skipped a beat as a cold sensation of death enveloped them. Their bodies shook uncontrollably. Through the shrill sounds, they seemed to see thousands of lonely souls and wild ghosts drifting in the underworld. Then, the life-eating sovereign crawled out of the tunnel. He could no longer be described as human. He was skin and bones, with skin as white as a corpse. His body was exceptionally long, standing over 2 meters tall. When he stood upright, a terrifying pressure like an infinite abyss covered the world. The entire central god state trembled. A sickly yellow mist, like swirling desert sand, instantly covered the entire world, as if the underworld itself had descended. The life-eating sovereign was the supreme ruler of this ghostly realm. Everyone's face turned pale as waves of shock crashed through their hearts. This was a true god. The Netherworld race had sent a true god. It was over. The life-eating sovereign looked around, his brow furrowing as he glanced back at the 2 false gods with displeasure. Why have you summoned me? The temporary spatial tunnel was suppressed by the highest order. Even as a true god, he had to use all his strength to squeeze through. The 2 false gods hurriedly reported the situation, pointing toward the sky where Jiang Changshou was undergoing his tribulation. Sovereign, this man must not be allowed to live. They hissed with killing intent. The life-eating sovereign nodded and looked up at Jiang Changshou. His eyes were a void of deathly gray. This child indeed deserves to die. His quiet words spread out, transforming into countless ghosts wielding the power of the great Tao. With shrill screams, they rushed toward Jiang Changshou. Jiang Changshou sensed the danger and turned his head, his mouth twitching. Damn it! I knew a 98% chance of success meant it would be incredibly dangerous. Chapter 307. Leave these 2 true gods to me. Suppress. The majestic projection of a Taoist sovereign soared forward. Its hazy, towering form stood before Jiang Changshou like a colossal divine peak, unshakable as a— On the other side, the life-eating sovereign saw his techniques dissolved with such ease. His brow furrowed, and a sense of unease bubbled within him. Watching the seamless flow of this tribulation process made him feel deeply unsettled. He vividly remembered his own tribulation. He had nearly lost his life. If several ancestors hadn't intervened with a grand array to assist him, he would have been reduced to ash by the terrifying lightning. Crucially, when did he undergo his tribulation? It was during the ancient era, when the shackles of the world were nowhere near as oppressive as they were today. In other words, the tribulation this man was facing was at least 10 times more powerful than his own had been. This man must not be allowed to succeed. The life-eating sovereign extended his withered right hand and made a grasping motion. A howl of sinister energy swept past, instantly claiming the lives of nearly 100 Netherworld warriors. He refined them into pure essence and hurled it into the blood sigil array created earlier by the 2 false gods, reopening the temporary spatial tunnel. Blood Nightmare Sovereign, come and assist me, he bellowed. The 2 Netherworld false gods were bewildered. They couldn't understand the life-eating sovereign's actions. Why call for help? He was a true god. Surely crushing a half-step true god in the middle of a tribulation should be as easy as turning over his hand. The life-eating sovereign saw their confusion, but ignored them. He certainly couldn't admit he felt unsure. The man's method of handling the tribulation was simply too smooth, and since his own technique had been so easily countered, he felt he had to be cautious. The opponent might have hidden means to threaten him. He had survived from the ancient era to the present by using every possible means to extend his life. He was waiting for the arrival of the great era to take the next step and extend his longevity further. He could not afford to fail now. To prevent any accidents, it was best to summon another true god. A thick, viscous scent of blood wafted through the air as another arm reached out from the temporary tunnel. Like the life-eating sovereign, this newcomer struggled against the suppression of the world's order as he slowly crawled through. The figure was burly and clad in a blood-red robe that seemed to flow with actual liquid gore. His aura was evil and overbearing. The moment he stood up, a sea of blood swayed, covering 10,000 miles of heaven and earth. Viscous blood drifted like an ocean, and a sinister, bloody mist rose to form a private domain of slaughter. The blood within the onlookers' bodies began to throb uncontrollably, as if pulled by a powerful force, threatening to erupt at any moment. Everyone watched in a daze as despair took root in their hearts. A true god, another true god. In an instant, every face turned ashen. It was over. They were completely finished. The Netherworld race had brought out 2 true gods at once. There was no way to resist. Even if the false god ancestors of their own factions arrived, they would likely only find despair and death. Their only hope now was for Senior Jiang Changshou to successfully ascend to the true god realm. But could he face 2 of them at once? The thought only deepened their hopelessness. The Blood Nightmare Sovereign surveyed the area, finally fixing his sharp, crimson eyes on Jiang Changshou. Who is this person? Is he the reason you summoned me? Indeed, the life-eating sovereign nodded. This man has many hidden cards. We must be cautious. Huh. The blood nightmare sovereign sneered with disdain. Life-eating, you truly have grown timid in your old age. What is there to be cautious about with a false god in the middle of a tribulation? To us, he is nothing more than an ant to be crushed at will. The life-eating sovereign was at a loss for words. Logically, that was true. By now, the blood nightmare sovereign had already stepped forward, carrying a boundless sea of blood toward Jiang Changshou. The thick gore churned and surged, gradually forming a massive, gaping maw that looked ready to swallow Jiang Changshou and his lightning tribulation hole. The bloody mist rose, and the rules of the world seemed to wither away. The void for thousands of miles trembled, revealing jagged cracks. Seeing this, the life-eating sovereign also lunged forward, commanding thousands of malicious ghosts to join the assault. It was as if a ghostly realm had descended. Shrill screams accompanied the cold power of the great Tao, and the world fell into a terrifying silence. Jiang Changshou's movements faltered slightly. He turned to look, his eyes narrowing as a fierce irritation flared within him. Damn it! Can't a man undergo his tribulation in peace? To have two true gods attack at once, they really did think highly of him. If he had already finished the tribulation and reached the true god realm, he would have the confidence to tangle with them, even if he couldn't win a 2-on-1 fight. But he was still in the middle of it. Fine, fine. If that's how you want to play. Jiang Changshou was so angry he laughed. He stood up abruptly and charged straight toward the two sovereigns. As he moved, the true god tribulation naturally followed. In other words, he intended to drag both true gods into the lightning storm with him. He decided to replicate Jiang Xian's favorite tactic. Whether he could harvest the benefits was one thing, but if the power of the tribulation exploded in response to their presence, these two netherworld true gods were definitely going to have a bad time. The life-eating sovereign and the blood nightmare sovereign both paled at the sight. What the hell? You're going to play dirty? This true god tribulation was already extraordinary due to the current shackles of the world. If they were dragged into it, the tribulation would undergo a further mutation. They couldn't even imagine how much stronger it would get, but they knew for certain they would suffer for it. Just then, a light chuckle echoed through the air. Changshou, when did you become so reckless? A burly figure appeared directly between Jiang Changshou and the two true gods. He was tall, draped in a pale white cloak, with thick eyebrows and an aura of absolute majesty. He looked like a supreme hegemon holding the power of life and death in his hands. With a word, the world would celebrate. With a flick of his temper, 1,000,000 corpses would fall. Focus on your tribulation. The man waved his sleeve, releasing a brilliant divine light that pushed Jiang Changshou back up into the sky. Then, he lowered his gaze toward the life-eating sovereign and the blood nightmare sovereign, offering a cold, thin smile. I'll handle these two true god nobodies. Chapter 308. Call for reinforcements. Keep calling. Nobodies. At those words, a surge of fury erupted within the life-eating sovereign and the blood nightmare sovereign. As esteemed true gods, when had they ever been treated with such blatant contempt? They prepared to strike in a rage, intending to execute this man on the spot to reclaim the honor of their rank. The ghostly realm of the underworld and the surging sea of blood pressed down toward the figure. At that moment, a vast and ancient aura erupted from the burly man. It felt like the desolate earth of a bygone era, filled with a sense of primitive power and ancient scars. The phantom of an infinite, barren continent manifested behind him. Rumble. The ghostly realm shattered. The sea of blood splattered in every direction. With just his aura alone, he instantly suppressed the life-eating sovereign's underworld and the blood nightmare sovereign's bloody domain. The expressions of the two true gods tightened, their eyes flickering with suspicion and alarm. Without a doubt, the man before them was a true god powerhouse. But how could the human race, in its state of decline, produce a true god willing to sacrifice his lifeblood to walk out into the world so openly? Was he truly not afraid of his longevity drying up until he withered and died? Furthermore, his vast aura showed no signs of decay. It felt as if he were in the prime of his life. This made no sense. Inside and outside Copper Demon City, the human experts looking at the burly figure were also filled with doubt and wonder. A true god? Which faction did he belong to? Is it the long-lived Jiang family again? Everyone instinctively looked toward Jiang Xian, their minds racing with speculation. They were aware of the ancient monsters sleeping within the top lineages that held long-standing inheritances, and they had long suspected that some true gods might still be alive. But the person before them seemed different from the typical old monsters who sealed themselves away to prolong their lives. Why did he feel so young? Why was there no sense of his lifeblood running thin or his end being near? Regardless, with the appearance of this true god, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Hope began to bloom in hearts that had previously fallen into despair. Perhaps they truly had a chance to survive. Brother Jiang, your family. Your hidden foundations are terrifying. Ming Fan could not help but exclaim in awe. Jiang Xuan remained silent, his eyes fixed on the figure in the pale white cloak. He was equally confused. Was this truly an ancestor of his Jiang family? He thought the only true gods left in the family were Ancestor Mountain, Ancestor Gu, and those few others. Those ancestors were near the end of their lifespans and had to remain sealed in the divine tomb. Once they emerged, they would have only 3 months to live. While that foundation was deep, it was mostly one-time use. Once used, it was gone forever. As he had told Ancestor Mountain before, he truly couldn't bear to see them go. The Jiang family only had so much in the coffers. As the young clan leader, he didn't want to be a spendthrift and waste their ultimate resources. But now he had his doubts. No matter how he looked at it, this man did not seem like he was facing his final days like Ancestor Mountain. Had he always underestimated the family's true wealth? The life-eating sovereign glared at the burly figure and shouted coldly, "Who exactly are you?" He needed to know the man's origin. When the Netherworld Race officially descended in the future, they would know exactly who to take care of first. The burly figure smiled faintly. Long live Jiang family, Jiang Changshou. As soon as he spoke, the pupils of the human experts below contracted. They were pale with shock. Jiang Changshou. He is actually alive. One blade to slaughter the heavens, one path to tilt the sky. The peerless genius of the Jiang family from 70,000 years ago. A powerhouse from a sacred ground who was familiar with those ancient records spoke with trembling lips. It is said that in the era when he rose to power, he slaughtered 30% of the geniuses in the Xuantian realm with a single blade. It incited the fury of countless factions who hunted him down. The saga ended with Jiang Changtian's disappearance. But 1,000 years after that, Jiang Changtian returned at the half-step false god realm. Carrying his blade, he entered the ancient tomb sect, the faction that had hunted him the most relentlessly. Alone with his blade, he turned the sect into a river of blood and a field of corpses. He even alarmed the sleeping false god ancestors of that sect. Jiang Changtian was fearless and fought the false gods. It is said that the battle completely shattered the ancient tomb sect. After that battle, no one saw Jiang Changtian walk out. The world believed he had perished along with the false gods. After the expert from the sacred ground finished, a Tao protector from a great sect continued. Although the world believed Jiang Changtian had fallen, his terrifying record was passed down. Slaughtering the heavens refers to the geniuses of Xuantian and the ancient tomb sect. Tilting the sky refers to the world's recognition of his strength. An ancient being once evaluated him after the fact, saying, "If this child does not perish, one day, he will surely tilt the very heavens with his path." Everyone was stunned and dazed. According to the records, shouldn't he have died in that sect? Why was he walking out today? And how had he leapt forward to become a true god, standing at the peak of Xuantian? Jiang Xian's pupils also contracted, and shock filled his heart. Damn, he really is a powerhouse from my family. My family is this powerful? I've been tricked. Jiang Xian felt a sudden pang of frustration. If he had known his family's foundations were this deep, why would he have bothered being so cautious? High in the sky, Jiang Changshou continued his tribulation while keeping his gaze on Jiang Changtian. His expression was complex and full of surprise. He was shocked that Jiang Changtian had returned, and it felt complicated that his senior had reached the true god realm before him. Judging by that unfathomable aura, the breakthrough must have happened quite some time ago. "Senior brother, when did you return?" Jiang Changshou asked softly. That was correct. Jiang Changtian was his senior brother. He had also fallen into a desperate situation during his growth and received secret guidance and teaching from that cautious ancestor, which allowed him to reverse his fortunes and soar. It was just that they were not from the same era. When Jiang Changshou received his guidance, the great name of Jiang Changtian had already been circulating for nearly 1,000 years. He only learned that Jiang Changtian was his senior brother through their master. It was also through their master that he learned Jiang Changtian had not died in that battle. He had been secretly taken away by their master to travel through various ancient secret lands. Jiang Changtian smiled and said, "I finished the task master gave me 2 days ago and came back. I wanted to see how the Jiang family was doing." As he spoke, Jiang Changtian glanced at Jiang Xuan below and let out a smile. "It seems my Jiang family is still the same Jiang family. The disciples of this era are not bad." Jiang Changshou nodded with a smile, but secretly grunted to himself. "Not bad. Once you really get to know this kid, if your jaw doesn't hit the floor, I lose." The conversation between the two was not hidden from others. Because of this, everyone stood with their mouths agape, unable to find words for their shock. One half-step true god undergoing a tribulation and one true god. Not only were they both from the Jiang family, but they shared the same master? Good heavens. To be able to teach these two, what kind of realm must their master be in? One didn't dare to think about it. It was simply beyond imagination. The life-eating sovereign and the blood nightmare sovereign felt the same. Their bodies trembled as a sense of horror crept into their hearts. A master? Judging by Jiang Changtian's words, their master was still alive. Damn it. They knew the waters of Xuantian were deep and that many old monsters were likely sleeping, and the Netherworld race had prepared for this. That was why they hadn't been reckless. choosing to use the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty to slowly plot and take control of Xuantian from the shadows. They hadn't expected their plans to collapse today, nor had they expected to draw out a true god. The key point was, there was someone even more powerful behind the true god. The two sovereigns instinctively looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with wariness and alarm. The situation had become extremely difficult. What do we do now? The Blood Nightmare sovereign asked in a low voice, his face looking incredibly grim. It's already come to this. What else can we do? The life-eating sovereign rolled his eyes and snapped. Call for reinforcements. Keep calling. Chapter 309. 3 breaths to call your elder. Blood Nightmare sovereign nodded, his frantic mind finally settling. He secretly blamed himself for sleeping too long. His wits had grown dull. He was backed by the vast Netherworld race. What was there to fear? In a situation like this, the answer was simple. Call for reinforcements. Even if this Jiang Changshou supposedly had a master of a higher realm standing behind him, what of it? Before the might of the Netherworld, such a person was still just a slightly larger ant. With the deep foundations of his race, they could crush any opposition with a flip of a hand. But the true lords are all in deep slumber. If we disturb them abruptly, they might not respond to us, Blood Nightmare Sovereign said, his voice tinged with worry as he looked toward Life-Eating Sovereign. Life-Eating Sovereign's eyes flickered. He pondered for a moment before replying. True Lord Enmion woke up 300 years ago to personally oversee the affairs of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Now that the plan has failed, it is only right to report to him and ask him to step in and set things right. Blood Nightmare Sovereign nodded thoughtfully. Let it be as you say. Immediately, the two true gods struck. They rounded up the remaining members of the Netherworld race, refining them into pure essence to fuel the temporary spatial tunnel. The strength of this man was even greater than they had imagined. Maintain the summoning array. I will block him. Blood Nightmare Sovereign commanded before charging forward with a boundless sea of blood. The blood surged like a roaring beast, attempting to swallow the mountain and river blade. Boom, boom, boom. The sea of blood shattered, yet the blade remained unstoppable. You think you alone can stop me? Jiang Changshou laughed coldly. Do you truly think I have never slaughtered a true god before? Clad in his pale cloak, Jiang Changshou stepped through the void, his majestic blade intent increasing tenfold with every stride. The space around him trembled violently, cracking under the unbearable weight. A hair-raising aura instantly shrouded the thousands of living beings below. Blood Nightmare Sovereign, standing directly in its path, felt his entire body tremble uncontrollably. Even the sea of blood he had manifested from the great Tao could not withstand the pressure. It collapsed into a literal rain of gore. Suddenly, Jiang Changshou vanished. A massive, overbearing Tao of the blade appeared across the firmament. The majestic intent fused with the Tao, transforming into a single, pale white blade that slashed down toward Blood Nightmare Sovereign. Blood Nightmare Sovereign's expression changed drastically. He threw out every hidden card and defensive treasure he possessed. Rumble. A terrifying explosion of energy erupted. Taoist laws shattered, the void splintered, and fragments of true god weapons flew in all directions. Jiang Changshou reappeared, holding a seemingly ordinary blade with blood dripping from its edge. Blood Nightmare Sovereign stood with a pale face, a shocking, gore-filled wound carved across his burly chest. A fierce blade intent ravaged the wound, preventing it from healing. Oh, you actually blocked that strike? Not bad, Jiang Changshou smiled. His body blurred into an afterimage as he raised his blade to strike again. Blood Nightmare Sovereign's soul leaped in fright. Terror filled his eyes. He roared inwardly. We are both true gods. How can this man be so strong? But with true Lord Enmion yet to arrive, he had no choice but to stay in the fight. He gritted his teeth and met the attack. At the same time, he roared toward Life-Eating Sovereign. Life-Eating. Hurry up. I can't hold on much longer. Soon. Almost there. Life-Eating Sovereign was also wearing a look of horror. This Jiang Changshou was too terrifying. Despite being in the same realm, he felt small and insignificant beneath that blade. This was not an illusion, but an absolute gap in power. There was every reason to believe this man truly had slaughtered true gods before. True, Lord Enmion. Save us. Life-Eating Sovereign called out toward the deep spatial corridor. What is all this noise? A single human true god has frightened you to this extent? An aged voice drifted from the other end of the corridor, dripping with cold disapproval. I give you a simple task, and you manage to embarrass yourselves like this. Life-Eating Sovereign lowered his head in shame. As the aged voice echoed, the entire world seemed to fall into a brief state of stasis. Not only the common folk below, but even Jiang Changshou and Blood Nightmare Sovereign were affected, their movements slowing, as if through thick sludge. In the next heartbeat, a hunched figure emerged from the spatial corridor. In a flash, he teleported to the center of the battlefield between Jiang Changshou and Blood Nightmare Sovereign. He reached out a withered right hand and caught Jiang Changtian's blade mid-swing. Bang! True Lord Enmion flung Jiang Changtian and his blade back several thousand feet. Then, His aged eyes lifted to look at the grim-faced Jiang Changshou. "I will give you 3 breaths of time," he said indifferently. "Call out the elder of your house. Otherwise, these few people here, including you, won't even be enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." Chapter 310. Old wretch, you dare hurt my son? While speaking, True Lord Mian lowered his head and looked down at the crowd. His indifferent gaze swept across every human present. Everyone instantly felt a crushing sense of insignificance, as if they were mere ants in the dust being watched by a giant dragon. It was an absolute suppression of life force. Fear was no longer an adequate word to describe it. Under that gaze, it felt as though they no longer even held control over their own life or death. This was a terrifying power far beyond that of a true god. It exceeded the boundaries of their understanding. Before this figure, they were as tiny as insects. This was a heavenly god. Jiang Qingshan's face darkened. This was a massive problem. The Netherworld race was truly shameless, actually summoning a heavenly god. If the youngsters could not win, did they just bring out the elders? Perhaps Mian possessed absolute confidence that his strength as a heavenly god allowed him to control the entire scene with ease, so he was in no hurry to strike. He simply stood quietly high in the sky. As he had said, he was giving the humans time to call for reinforcements. For a human race that had been withered for millions of years, to still have a few true gods left was already difficult. Even if they called for help, they likely could not summon anyone significant. Of course, if they did manage to bring someone out, it would be even better. He could swallow them all at once and save himself the trouble later. Because Mian did not move, Jiang Changshou was able to continue his tribulation in peace. The process was going smoothly and would likely finish in the time it took for an incense stick to burn. However, now that the Netherworld had brought out a heavenly god, Jiang Changshou was naturally burning with anxiety. "Senior brother, where's Master?" Jiang Changshou sent a mental transmission to Jiang Qingtian. Jiang Qingshan's expression turned grim and helpless. "I do not know. 1,000 years ago, he threw me into a divine ruin to break through to the true god realm, and then the old man just left. He never told me where he was going." Jiang Changshu's heart sank. He was about to say more when the arrival of several newcomers broke the hopeless atmosphere. "Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Netherworld Race. You have a lot of nerve, daring to plot against the geniuses of our sect." Blurry figures tore through the void. Before they even arrived, their furious shouts echoed through the heavens. 9 figures appeared simultaneously, their powerful false god auras surging. The true god weapons in their hands shimmered with the brilliant light of the great Tao, shaking the world and creating a massive pressure. The reinforcements from various factions had finally arrived, though they were late. The experts on the ground instinctively felt a flash of joy. Their ancestors had finally come. But in the next heartbeat, they remembered the grim reality. The Netherworld had brought out a heavenly god. Every face turned ashen. The ancestors had arrived just in time to walk into a slaughter. "Not bad, not bad," Mian laughed. 9 false gods. They will make a decent snack." The 9 false god ancestors were filled with shock and rage. A snack? What arrogance! But a moment later, as they sensed Mian's unfathomable, untraceable aura, their expressions changed drastically. Their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Good heavens! A heavenly god! The 9 looked at each other with bitterness in their eyes. Why had they even bothered to come? Mian saw the internal struggle of the 9 false gods and gave a cold smile. "Little ones, do not be afraid. I will give you time to call for more help." "And you," he said, looking at Jiang Qingtian. "Where is your master? Call him here quickly. It is not easy for me to wake up. I want to eat my fill. Hurry up. When the heavyweights fight, it is the small fry who suffer." Am I really finished just like this? Under the shroud of impending death, a sense of unreality washed over him. Everything had happened too fast. So fast that he was dazed. "No, giving up like this is not my style." Jiang Xian's eyes turned fierce as a streak of ruthlessness emerged. He unleashed every technique in his arsenal. The indestructible lightning body, the lightning avatar, the vermilion bird saint body, the great Tao of lightning and fire. Under the seal of a heavenly god's power, they were useless. The laws of reversal, the sword of humanity, still useless. The human monument, useless. The samsara treasure technique, useless. Even the world tree offered no response. All his trump cards and methods felt as if they had been stripped away, impossible to mobilize. Jiang Xian's eyes bulged, filled with the flames of madness. For the first time, held in the hand of a heavenly god, he felt utterly powerless. One last card. Ancestors, protect me. The Black Hole Tao Foundation. The ancestral inheritance. Jiang Xian roared internally, frantically driving the Black Hole Tao Foundation. Finally, the foundation gave a slight tremor. It responded to Jiang Xian, though the response felt somewhat careless and perfunctory. At the same time, Jiang Xian's Jiang family bloodline, which stood at a purity of 95, suddenly erupted. His blood, as brilliant as glass, surged and boiled, bursting forth with a blinding radiance. Almost at the exact same moment, an enraged roar shattered the heavens. 10,000 miles of void collapsed instantly, and the entire Xuantian realm trembled. Old wretch, you dare hurt my son? Chapter 311, Mother Strikes. From the edge of the void, a hazy silhouette emerged. She wore no makeup, yet her beauty eclipsed all living beings like the moon itself. Her aura was serene, flowing like the cool, clear water of a mountain stream. With every step, lotus flowers bloomed. Ethereal immortal mists drifted around her as magnificent Tao flowers clustered together, creating a vision of a lunar palace as if immortals were gathered there to drink the wine of longevity. What terrified countless onlookers was that as she approached, an eternal darkness surged like a tide. It swallowed the firmament and covered the land. By the time she stood high above Copper Demon City, the entirety of the Xuantian realm had plunged into night. In this absolute blackness, only the power of the great Tao held by those in the divine realm flickered with faint light. Could this be? Innumerable beings trembled, to change the very phenomena of heaven and earth with mere presence. What kind of terrifying power was this? Across the realm, within forgotten and unknown forbidden zones, several ultimate old monsters buried by time were jolted awake by her aura. Ancient, powerful energies rolled forth. These were all high-level figures of the divine realm. These monsters cast suspicious and startled gazes toward her. Why were false gods, true gods, and heavenly gods walking out one after another today? And for someone of her level to appear, had the great era already arrived? In the immortal Zhao family, Zhao Fuyao suddenly snapped her eyes open. Her starlit eyes were filled with shock. The great era has not yet arrived. How can someone have already reached this level? In the Jiang family ancestral land, the projections of Ancestor Mountain and Ancestor Gu reappeared. Ancestor Gu looked at the silhouette changing the sky and was overjoyed. Lanyue is not dead. She has actually reached such a realm. Ancestor Mountain also revealed a joyful smile. The couple, Xuantian and Lanyue, truly did not perish. Indeed, this silhouette was Jiang Xuan's mother, Lanyue. Lanyue's current strength. She likely turned disaster into a blessing and obtained an incredible opportunity within that life forbidden zone. Ancestor Gu couldn't help but exclaim in awe. Her unfathomable aura made even him feel a sense of palpitation. Her true realm had likely surpassed their own. High above Copper Demon City, Jiang Changshou looked at Lanyue's illusory form in a daze. He couldn't help but ask Jiang Changshou, "Is she a member of our Jiang family?" Lanyue, the wife of the Jiang family's previous young clan leader, Jiang Haoyan. "She is this boy's biological mother," Jiang Changshou explained while continuing to cross his tribulation. Previous generation? Jiang Qingtian's eyes bulged in shock. "You mean her ages?" "Exactly. She belongs to the same era as those two juniors down there. At most, she is only about 1,000 years old." Jiang Changshou gestured toward heavenly venerate Luo Ming and the Owl King. His own expression was full of shock and wonder. Back then, he was the one who secretly nudged that brat Jiang Haoyan to bring this girl home and win her over. How had she become so much stronger than him in the blink of an eye? What exactly had she and Jiang Haoyan experienced in that life forbidden zone all these years? At this moment, Lanyue lowered her gaze toward true Lord Mian. Her hazy face burned with rage. "You deserve to die." As her voice, carrying the weight of a divine judgment, fell, she pressed a slender finger toward him. A cold killing intent accompanied by the power of serene moonlight formed into 3 ultimate Taihao moon blades. The 3 blades sliced through the deep night and pierced the infinite void. Carrying an endless cold light, they appeared instantly above, behind, and beneath true Lord Mian, threatening to hack him into 10,000 pieces. Mian's heart leaped in terror. He was utterly bewildered. How could the humans truly have someone above the true God realm? This was beyond ridiculous. For a withered race, how was this possible? Though he was confused, his reflexes were lightning fast. Faced with a lethal crisis, a crown guard flew from his body, propping up a profound barrier to briefly stall the moon blades. Simultaneously, he instinctively leaped through the void, retreating 10,000 feet. Decisively, he hoisted Jiang Xuan up to use as a shield in front of him. The woman posed a genuine threat to him, and he couldn't see through her true cultivation. It was better to act with extreme caution. This boy in his hand was her son? With such a bargaining chip, his safety should be guaranteed. Mian gripped Jiang Xuan's throat, holding him out in front. He stared through Jiang Xuan at the illusory silhouette and asked in a heavy voice, "Who exactly are you?" She was merely a projection, yet she possessed the terrifying power to endanger him. Her true realm was likely far above his own. Cold dread welled up from the depths of his soul. He cursed his luck. He should have consulted the omens before leaving his home. He had no time to ponder why such a powerful being existed among the humans, or why someone of her level had a son who was still growing. He didn't even care about the Netherworld's plans anymore. He simply needed to survive. Lanyue laughed, a cold and hollow sound. She ignored Mian entirely. In her eyes, this Netherworld Heavenly God was already a dead man. She turned her gaze to Jiang Xuan, her eyes flickering with pity and self-reproach. Her voice was full of heartache. Mother has come too late. Jiang Xuan was stunned. Mother? He had considered that his parents might still be alive, but he never imagined they would meet like this. Why did his mother seem so incredibly powerful? Lanyue sighed softly. I know you have many questions. Yin Mion's face darkened. He was being ignored. He was a heavenly god. He felt deeply insulted. Even if you two want to catch up, look at the situation. Your son is still in my hands. With a sinister expression, Yin Mion tightened his grip on Jiang Xuan's throat and growled. If you want your son to be unharmed. Lanyue's brows lifted as her gaze turned freezing. She interrupted him directly. What kind of thing are you to dare threaten me? She reached out her right hand and made a grasping motion in the air. The entire Xuantian realm trembled. A massive pressure descended, weighing upon the hearts of all living beings like a vast ocean or a divine mountain. It brought a sense of suffocating helplessness. Then, above the pitch-black sky of the eternal night, a crescent moon suddenly leaped into view. It was serene, cold, and possessed a majestic supremacy that demanded worship. The crescent moon vibrated slightly. Moonbeams, as delicate as silk veils, drifted down to shroud the world in a layer of cold white frost. Yin Mion was the primary target. He didn't even have the chance to notice anything was wrong before he was covered in white frost. Layer after layer enveloped him until he resembled a lifelike ice sculpture. The terrified expression on his face was etched with startling clarity. Lanyue beckoned with her hand, pulling Jiang Xuan into her embrace. She checked him over with concern. Are you all right? Jiang Xuan shook his head, his mind in a state of upheaval. Was his mother really this strong? Crack, crack. The crown guard shattered, and Yin Mion burst from the icy seal. Having recognized the source of Lanyue's power, the terror on his face intensified. Moon God. This is the power of the Moon God. Are you a descendant of Taihao? Chapter 312. Erasing a Heavenly God. According to the ancient records of the Netherworld Race, the human race possessed various guardian powers, the most famous being the 8 royal clans. Beyond these clans were the deities once infected by the human emperor. The powers inherited by their descendants carried terrifying, primordial might. In some respects, these divine descendants ranked even higher than the 8 royal clans. The royal clans had been targeted by the demon race and had long since withered, but the divine lineages remained hidden. It was said that the human emperor had infected many gods. The mountain god of the guardian lineage was one, yet even that was considered a common rank. Among all the infected deities, the moon god, Taihao, undoubtedly stood at the very peak. As a bloodline descendant of Taihao, whether in inherited secret techniques or personal foundation, the strength was catastrophic. During the era when the Netherworld race first invaded the Xuantian realm, they had witnessed the power of a Taihao descendant. The Netherworld race possessed bodies that were nearly immortal and methods that were treacherous and cunning. Dealing with the average human was simple. They had swept through the realm back then, occupying 2 great divine provinces. But then, 13 Taihao descendants emerged. They invoked the moon god's authority and executed the Netherworld's supreme expert, a being above the divine realm, on the spot. The tide turned instantly, and the Netherworld race was forced into a bitter retreat. True Lord Yin Mion felt as though he had walked into a trap. To further the race's plans, he had answered the call of life-eating sovereign, only to run headfirst into a descendant of Taihao. This woman had already mastered a portion of the moon god's authority. His expression shifted rapidly between fear and calculation. What should he do? Life-eating sovereign and blood nightmare sovereign also understood the legends. They realized that not just Yin Mion, but every member of the Netherworld race present was in mortal danger. True Lord Yin Mion, my suggestion is, call for help. Life-eating sovereign suggested urgently. Call for help. Yin Mion glared at him and snapped. Call who? The others are in a deep slumber. They cannot sense my summons. Who exactly do you expect me to call? He did not voice his deepest fear. Even if reinforcements arrived, they might not be a match for this Taihao descendant. Life-eating sovereign froze, panic spreading across his face. Then, what do we do? Yin Mion sighed. There was only one option left, a desperate struggle. If he could suppress her even slightly, he might find a chance to escape. He extended his withered right hand, seizing the dense lunar power between heaven and earth to form a 100-fathom-tall lunar divine puppet. His own shriveled body slowly merged into it. Operating the massive puppet, Yin Mion looked at Lanyue and gave a cold smile. Today, I shall see which is superior, your moon god's authority or my lunar power. He lunged forward. Despite its massive size, the puppet moved with the agility of a spirit ape. Frigid lunar power followed him, turning the surrounding 10,000 miles into a dark, spectral pool. The deep water acted like a treacherous mirror, radiating a bone-chilling aura. Above the pool, the puppet unleashed dozens of killing techniques. Beneath the surface, however, there was only a reflection of Yin Mion himself, not the puppet. This reflection seemed to come to life, lunging toward Lanyue's own reflection in an attempt to obliterate her soul. This was his secret technique, the spectral pool. By turning lunar power into a dark lake, He could invert reality and illusion. A death in the pool was mirrored perfectly in the physical world. He had once killed a heavenly god of the demon race with this very move. But a moment later, Mian realized the gap in their levels was too vast to bridge with mere techniques. No one could quite see what Lanyue did. Even Jiang Xuan, standing beside her, could not follow her movements. They only noticed that the crescent moon hanging in the dark sky had quietly transformed into a full moon, radiating a gentle, pure light. The air hummed. The full moon trembled and grew brighter. Then, the entire world's great Tao, its laws, and its spiritual energy began to boil. This boiling brought absolute chaos. Every scrap of energy in the void became a violent, disordered beast. The spectral pool shattered instantly. Even the puppet Mian had merged with began to disintegrate under the chaotic pressure. Mian's true body was forced out of the shadows. He stood 100 feet away from Lanyue, looking awkward and small. When the difference in power reaches a certain level, words become useless. He knew now that this woman's strength was far beyond his reach. "I surrender," Mian shouted. He was a practical man. Survival came first. "I can provide the details of the Netherworld's deployments and the locations of the spatial tunnels." He never finished the sentence. A sliver of moonlight brushed against him. The pure frost carried a power of dissolution. Like snow meeting a spring sun, true Lord Mian melted away until nothing remained. A heavenly god of the Netherworld race had been erased. The silence was absolute. Everyone was stunned. A heavenly god was simply gone. The experts across the Xuantian realm who were watching through secret means felt a deep sense of awe and terror. This woman was too strong. She was someone who must never be provoked. Life-eating sovereign and blood nightmare sovereign looked at each other in total despair. If a heavenly god could not last a single breath, they stood no chance. They chose to accept their fate. After secretly transmitting the news of the Taihao lineage's survival back to their race, they raised their hands in surrender. The Netherworld needed to know, if they ever planned to invade again, the descendants of Taihao had to be dealt with first. The two Netherworld false gods followed suit, bowing their heads in submission. Only Ming Kong, Wang Su, and the experts of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty stood there with darkening faces. Their patrons had surrendered, leaving them to face the consequences alone. Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming and the Owl King stared at the illusory figure in the sky. Their eyes twitched in disbelief. "Is that sister-in-law Lanyue? How is she this strong?" They laughed bitterly. It seemed Jiang Xuan had left them far behind after all. If Lanyue had reached such heights, they could only imagine where Jiang Xuan stood. The young girl Nuo sucked on her finger, her eyes wide with wonder. Was Grandma really this powerful? Jiang Chun and the others were equally shaken. Luo Xinglan, however, watched with deep blue light flickering in her eyes. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion. In the memories of her past life, this had never happened. She recognized the power, a descendant of Taihao wielding the moon god's authority, but this was a variable she hadn't expected. This series of changes had effectively cut the Netherworld's plans off at the root and altered the course of history. She felt a sudden, bad premonition. Would these ripples cause her own great tribulation to arrive earlier than expected? High in the clouds, Lanyue patted Jiang Xuan on the shoulder. She glanced down at Luo Xinglan and spoke with a teasing smile. "That girl is quite good. Work hard, son. By the time your father and I return, I expect to be holding a grandson." Chapter 313, Speeding Up to Support My Son. Jiang Xuan went slightly. He was still finding it difficult to adjust to his mother's sudden change in topic. He could not help but say, "Had you not already arranged an engagement for me long ago? Did we?" Lanyue paused for a moment as she searched her memories. "You mean that Nangong family from the borderlands?" "Yes," Jiang Xuan nodded. "You can blame your father for that one. He lost a bet to that old scoundrel of a Taoist," Lanyue said. Her expression soured at the thought. She had been strongly opposed to that muddled engagement at the time. How could a father make his son pay the price for a lost bet? Because of that incident, she had punished Jiang Xuan by banning him from their bed for 3 months. Jiang Xuan was stunned. So his engagement was merely the byproduct of his father losing a bet? Was it really that arbitrary? "Have you met your fiancé yet? If you are not satisfied, you should break it off sooner rather than later," Lanyue said. She glanced down at Luo Xinglan. Her eyes flickered with interest as she took note of the profound saint body and the aura of desolate heaven. She concluded that this girl was undoubtedly the desolate heaven goddess of this generation and the chosen successor. Her future achievements would certainly be great enough to match her son. Jiang Xuan felt a bit overwhelmed. He hesitated before saying, "Well, as for my fiancée, I am actually quite satisfied with her." He briefly explained the situation regarding Nangong Mingbir to Lanyue. He specifically emphasized that she was now the 9th saintess of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. He noted that even before she rose to power, she never relied on him and had even gifted him a true god weapon, God's blessing. At the very beginning, his attitude toward her had been based on the idea that she was a daughter of destiny and someone not to be crossed. Plus, with his golden finger shared luck system, he figured he might as well benefit from her fortune. But now, Perhaps because of the karmic ties from their shared 10,000-year dream, or perhaps because her constant self-reliance had attracted him, he had developed genuine feelings for his fiancée. God's blessing? Lanyue murmured in surprise. Has the key already begun to appear? It seems the great era truly is about to descend. Make sure you keep God's blessing safe. It will be of great use in the future, Lanyue instructed him solemnly. The ancestor said that God's blessing is related to the life-forbidden zone where you and father are trapped? Jiang Xuan asked. It is indeed closely related, Lanyue nodded. She reached out and patted Jiang Xuan's head with a smile. But it is not what you think. This item cannot be used to rescue your father and me. Our situation is a bit unique. We have our own way of getting out, so you do not need to worry. Jiang Xuan nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. However, his mother's next words made his face turn grim again. If you truly want to show your filial piety, you should hurry up and have a few children. Once I am out, I want to hold my grandchildren. I am quite satisfied with this little girl. Give it some thought, Lanyue said, gesturing toward Luo Xinglan while giving Jiang Xuan a knowing wink. Mother, I have a fiancé, Jiang Xuan emphasized again with a look of helplessness. Lanyue waved her hand dismissively. What does having a fiancé matter? It is perfectly normal for a great man to have several wives and concubines. Then what about father? He wouldn't dare. Lanyue's eyes widened. I would break all 5 of his limbs. Jiang Xuan winced. That was a blatant double standard. Lanyue realized her son was trying to be clever by using his father to shut her up. She gave a helpless laugh, her expression becoming a bit more serious. Based on what you said, that Nangong Mingyue is indeed a fine girl. When she was weak, she did not cling to you or use your reputation for her own gain. She stayed true to her heart, did not crave your resources, and even reciprocated your kindness with God's blessing. She has the pride and spirit of a true genius. Now that she has risen to the position of 9th Saintess of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty, she has a prominent status and immense fame, yet she has shown no intention of breaking the engagement. She is loyal and righteous, not an ungrateful person. However, as someone who has been through much, let me give you a piece of advice. A woman like that is not the best choice for a cultivation partner. Lanyue patted Jiang Xuan's shoulder but did not elaborate further. She could hardly say that Nangong Mingyue was far too similar to herself. She feared her precious son would end up following in his father's footsteps. Brat, you are celebrating a bit too early. This game of chess is only half over. With a wave of his hand, a deep light swept across, revealing a projection of the vast galaxy. Thousands of stars floated there, exuding an ancient and profound aura. The decaying laugh rang out again. Out of the 3,000 great worlds, you have only occupied 30%. How can you claim to have defeated me? The left side of Jiang Heoshan's face remained calm. He looked at Lanyue and smiled. Because I have a wife, and you do not. The right side of the face, possessed by the mysterious light, immediately contorted with rage. Lanyue rolled her eyes, but smiled at the compliment nonetheless. Tell me, what do you want me to do next? Jiang Heoshan's expression turned serious. The Tsungyuan domain. After receiving her instructions, Lanyue nodded and tore through space, leaving with the moon god's authority in hand. You cannot defeat me. The decaying voice rang out again. Zhang Haoyan simply smiled. You are panicking. Ignoring the voice entirely, Zhang Haoyan closed his eyes and continued to absorb the flowing great Tao sources. He had to speed up. As a father, he had to get out of here as soon as possible. Otherwise, how could he support his son? Chapter 314. Gratitude from the 9 False Gods. Copper Demon City was a scene of settling dust. As the illusory projection of Lanyue faded and the Netherworld Heavenly God In Mian perished, the balance of power shifted decisively. Jiang Changshou raised a primal silhouette that transformed into a blade of mountains and rivers, slashing toward life-eating sovereign and blood nightmare sovereign. He intended to strike while the iron was hot and ensure none of the Netherworld forces escaped. The expressions of life-eating sovereign and blood nightmare sovereign darkened. The fall of In Mian was a staggering blow, crushing their morale. They no longer had the heart to fight. Go! The 2 sovereigns cried out. One summoned a ghostly domain of the underworld, while the other manifested a sky-covering sea of blood. They braced themselves to take a direct hit from Jiang Changshou, using the diversion to grab the remaining 2 false gods and the experts of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. They fled the scene at top speed. Ming Kong looked on with a grim face, but he was powerless to change the course of events. He believed that with 2 Netherworld true gods still present, they might have had a chance to fight on and wipe out the survivors. However, since the sovereigns chose to retreat, he had no standing to object. In terms of both strength and status, he was merely a puppet supported by the Netherworld race with no real authority. Furthermore, the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty was now lashed to the same sinking ship as the Netherworld. To survive the coming wrath of the various human factions of the Xuantian realm, they had to rely on the protection of those 2 true gods. Jiang Qingtian prepared to give chase, but Jiang Xuan stepped forward to stop him. He gestured toward the sky, where Jiang Changshou was still undergoing his tribulation. The enemy still has 2 true gods. While you might be able to fight them 2 against 1, Ancestor, trying to kill them both would be difficult. More importantly, Ancestor Jiang Changshou is still in the middle of his tribulation. To be safe, you should stay here and protect him. This matter was far from over. Jiang Xuan simply lacked the current power to resolve it. Given the treacherous nature of the Netherworld race and their unknown trump cards, he could not risk exhausting the Jiang family's hidden strength. This debt would have to be settled in the future. Jiang Qingtian hesitated for a moment before nodding. I will follow your counsel. He turned and ascended to the sky, standing guard near Jiang Changshou and guiding him through the final stages of the tribulation. Amidst the flickering lightning, Jiang Changshou's aura grew increasingly dense and powerful. Below, the experts of various factions and the false god ancestors remained in a state of shock. In their world, a false god was in existence at the very peak of the Xuantian realm. Yet, the day's events had shattered their worldview repeatedly. They had just watched a terrifying heavenly god from the Netherworld race turn to dust without the slightest power to resist. A profound sense of insignificance, like frogs at the bottom of a well, took root in their hearts. After a long silence, the crowd turned their eyes toward the handsome young man standing in the sky. He was undeniably the monster of the Jiang family. At this point, his true identity was no longer a secret. They all suspected that Jiang Bei was just a mask, and the Jiang Qianquan who appeared in the true spirit secret realm was likely another. He was almost certainly the Jiang family genius with the ancestral bloodline and the designated young clan leader. As for his relationship with the currently public young clan leader, Jiang Xuan, they did not want to know, nor did they dare to ask. The longevity Jiang family had been passed down from ancient times. They had always known its foundations were deep, but after today, they realized they had still vastly underestimated the family's terrifying power. First, there was Jiang Changshou, who ignored the shackles of the world to break through to the true god realm. Then came Jiang Qingtian, a true god in his prime. Finally, there was the projection, a mere shadow that crushed a heavenly god with a wave of her hand. Crucially, that woman was the mother of this young genius. With that realization, no one cared to dig any deeper into his identity. Their immediate priority was to get on the good side of the Jiang family and this young man. Although they had suffered heavy losses and their young talents had been slaughtered by the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty and the Netherworld Race, essentially stripping them of a chance to compete in the coming Great Era, they still had to look forward. They were out of the race for the younger generation's dominance, but they needed to prepare for survival. The Jiang family was a pillar of strength. If they could cling to them, they might survive the coming cataclysm under their protection. Today, we receive the aid of the Jiang family to repel the Netherworld invasion. We are deeply grateful. Should the Jiang family ever have need of us, we will face 10,000 deaths without hesitation. The 9 false god ancestors cupped their fists and gave Jiang Xuan a solemn promise. Further gifts and formal displays of gratitude would be handled by their subordinates later, who would arrange lavish offerings to be sent to the Jiang family. The other experts below followed suit, bowing to Jiang Xuan in thanks. In their eyes, he was already the voice of the Jiang family. Jiang Xuan returned the gestures one by one. He knew his identity was likely guessed, but with the Jiang family's foundation and his parents' strength, he didn't care. With such backing, he could afford to be a little arrogant. Suddenly, an unexpected event occurred. The demon cave opened, and 100 Netherworld soldiers flew out. These soldiers had been secretly detained by the true demon, who wanted to study the methods of the Netherworld race. However, after witnessing the terrifying power of the Jiang family, the demon chose the path of wisdom and gifted the soldiers to Jiang Xuan. These soldiers were the former geniuses of the various factions. By giving them to Jiang Xuan, the demon allowed Jiang Xuan to return them to their sects, essentially hand-delivering a massive favor for Jiang Xuan to claim. It was a clear gesture of goodwill and submission. I look forward to our battle in the future, the true demon said calmly before the demonic energy retracted and the cave returned to its semi-sealed state. He knows how to behave, was Jiang Xuan's internal assessment of the demon. These 100 individuals are the geniuses of your factions. Would you like to claim them? Jiang Xuan asked, looking at the 9 false god ancestors. The ancestors looked down with hesitant, grim expressions. They have been refined and controlled by the Netherworld race. They can no longer be considered part of the human race. You may deal with them as you see fit, young master. We have no objections. They wanted their disciples back, of course, but the Netherworld's control was a source of great danger. Jiang Xuan saw through their worries and smiled. There is no need for such concern. Jiang Qing, Jiang Hong. Here, the 2 responded. They stepped forward and activated their constitutions, creating a ghostly domain that began to awaken the dormant consciousness of the 100 soldiers. Meanwhile, Jiang Xuan secretly used the World Tree seedling to devour and plunder the Netherworld seals within their souls. The supposedly irreversible reincarnation process of the Netherworld race was thus unraveled. The 100 soldiers regained their status as geniuses. They looked at their hands in disbelief, feeling the return of control over their bodies. After a moment of daze, many broke into tears of joy. They bowed deeply to Jiang Xuan. We thank young Master Jiang for saving our lives. The crowd was shaken once again. The reincarnation techniques of the Netherworld were mysterious and considered impossible to break. Yet this young man had undone them with such ease. The image of the woman who changed the sky flashed through their minds once more. As expected of her son, they thought. Looking at Jiang Xuan, they were certain that in time, his brilliance would cover the entire Xuantian realm just as hers did. Chapter 315, A Request for the Sovereign. After offering their gratitude, the various factions took their geniuses and departed. The losses were heavy, and the sudden emergence of the Netherworld race meant they had to prepare more rigorously for the coming Great Era. A bitter grudge had been formed against both the Netherworld and the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. If given the chance, these sects would mobilize their entire strength to erase the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty from the face of the Xuantian realm. Nearby, Luo Xinglan took the initiative to bid farewell to Jiang Xuan. Seeing the power of the sovereign and the Jiang family today has made this trip more than worthwhile, she said. Jiang Xuan chuckled softly. It was simply a matter of fate. After a few more pleasantries, Luo Xinglan set aside her hesitation. I have a bold request to ask of you, sovereign. Jiang Xuan looked at her with surprise and curiosity. What is it? Luo Xinglan glanced at Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming. Understanding her intent, he waved his hand to establish a soundproof barrier around the two of them. To be honest, sovereign, through a series of unique opportunities, I have learned that the desolate Heaven Divine sect will face a massive catastrophe in the future. I fear our own strength will be insufficient to withstand it. If you have achieved the necessary power by then, would you be willing to lend a hand and save my sect from ruin? Luo Xinglan bit her lower lip. She quickly added, whatever your requirements may be, I and the desolate Heaven Divine sect will do our utmost to satisfy them. Jiang Xuan narrowed his eyes, studying her thoughtfully. So, during the true spirit secret realm, her tireless efforts to please him were all for this? It seemed strange. How could she be so certain that he would possess the power to save her sect in the future? You must be joking. You speak as if you have seen the future and already know my destiny, Jiang Xuan said, unable to resist a playful tease. Luo Xinglan did not laugh. Instead, she offered a meaningful reply. Your wisdom is beyond this world, sovereign. Jiang Xuan's expression stiffened. He dropped the humor and stared at her for a long time. A wave of realization hit him. Could she be another daughter of destiny? After a moment of silence, he composed himself and gave a slow, deliberate nod. Since you have asked, I have no reason to refuse. If your sect truly encounters a disaster, and I have the power to help, I will. We should support each other in the era to come. I thank the sovereign. If you ever have a need in the future, I will go through fire and water at a moment's notice. Luo Xinglan bowed respectfully and prepared to leave. However, Jiang Xuan couldn't help but ask one last question. Tell me, how were you able to see through my identity so accurately? Whether in the secret realm or the demon cave, she had clearly known who he was. This puzzled him, as the power of Heaven's Path concealment technique was so strong that even Ancestor Mountain struggled to see through it. Furthermore, they hadn't had much interaction before the secret realm, aside from her proposing an alliance that he had firmly rejected. Luo Xinglan turned back and blinked, her expression one of mock grievance. In all of Xuantian, you are the only one who would repeatedly reject me. Jiang Xuan scratched his head awkwardly and gave a sheepish smile. Seeing his embarrassment, Luo Xinglan burst into laughter. I practice a special secret method that allows me to perceive the essence of a person's life force. Jiang Xuan nodded in understanding. Luo Xinglan then took her leave, departing with Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming and the other geniuses to return to their sect and prepare. The appearance of the Netherworld race did not pose a direct conflict for the desolate Heaven Divine sect yet. The various lineages in the Central Divine Province would be the first to monitor and control that threat. But the arrival of a Netherworld Heavenly God served as a loud wake-up call. The Great Era was coming, and the alien races coveting the realm were on their way back. As members of the human race, the desolate Heaven Divine sect had their own task: watch the Daluo Holy Land and the demon race. On the warships speeding through the clouds, Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming looked at Luo Xinglan. Seeing her somewhat dejected expression, he tried to comfort her. Child, some things cannot be forced. Luo Xinglan snapped out of her daze and gave a frank smile. Romance is a mere hope in this great era, not something to be chased. I understand the difference. The desolate Heaven Divine sect is my home. I will not allow it to perish, even if it costs me my life. Her eyes flickered with a deep blue light. Her profound, insane body activated instinctively, manifesting a lunar silhouette. Her aura became more profound and powerful. Her state of mind had evolved, and her strength grew with it. Seeing this, Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming felt both proud and a bit helpless. Back then, Jiang Xuan had suppressed his entire generation with talent. Now, his son was even more ridiculous. Was he going to make the goddess of the desolate Heaven Divine sect lose her heart for an entire era? Back on the ground, watching the warship disappear, the young girl Nua sucked her finger and walked over to Jiang Xuan. Daddy, are you just going to let the third mother walk away like that? Grandma wanted grandchildren, after all. Jiang Xuan gave her a light flick on the forehead. Stop talking nonsense. What do you mean, third mother? The girl's eyes widened in confusion. The world of adults was so strange. At that moment, the Wenchang Saintess and the geniuses of the Wenchang Academy came to say goodbye. Thank you, Brother Jiang. If not for you, we would have perished in the demon cave. We plan to return to the academy and convince our teachers to help the ninth prince reclaim the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. The Saintess lowered her gaze, her expression a mix of sorrow and anger. I never expected our ancestors would betray humanity and conspire with the Netherworld out of sheer selfishness. The dynasty is rotten to the core. However, the ninth prince is a virtuous man. He would never do anything to harm our race. I believe you know this. She looked at Jiang Xuan with a plea in her eyes. But the dynasty is the legacy of the Ming family. I cannot sit by and watch it be destroyed. Therefore, I ask of you, if we help the ninth prince reclaim the throne, could you vouch for him and for our family? Could you give the dynasty a chance to continue? She bowed deeply. The power of the Jiang family was now undeniable. They were the uncrowned overlords of Xuantian. For a long time, every top faction would have to respect the Jiang family's stance. As their top genius, Jiang Xuan was effectively their spokesman. If he spoke for the Ming family, other sects would surely grant them a chance to survive. Jiang Xuan narrowed his eyes, but did not respond immediately. Instead, he looked at Ming Fan and teased him. Ninth Prince, shouldn't you be the one stepping forward? It isn't right to let a woman plead on your behalf. Chapter 316, Born in Great Ming, Buried in Great Ming. Ming Fan's expression was a tangle of complex emotions, and he could only offer a bitter smile. He knew deep down that he should be the one to step forward and make the request, yet he simply could not bring himself to ask such a favor of Brother Jiang. Jiang Xuan saw the inner torment Ming Fan was enduring. He shook his head slightly and spoke in a soft, steady voice. I will offer you two paths. You may choose the one that suits you. Ming Fan froze. He looked up at Jiang Xuan in bewilderment, his mind racing with confusion. The first path is an idea I had some time ago. To be frank, the master of the Jishao Academy is currently staying with my Jiang family. If you are willing, I can arrange for him to accept you as his disciple. You would then be tasked with rebuilding the Jishao Academy yourself. As the Jishao Academy rises again and the Wenchang Academy returns to its fold, it will rapidly become a formidable power in its own right. It will be more than enough to shelter those members of the Ming family who did not conspire with the Netherworld Race. Jiang Xuan looked directly into Ming Fan's eyes, his tone turning solemn. The Great Ming Immortal Dynasty may fall, but the Ming family line can endure. Ming Fan immediately fell into a deep silence, weighing the weight of those words. The Wenchang Saintess and the other geniuses from the academy were clearly moved. This was undoubtedly a magnificent opportunity. Not only would it preserve the bloodline of the Ming family, but it would also allow the inheritance of the Wenchang Academy to continue, restoring the glory of the ancient Jishao Academy. As for the second path, Jiang Xuan continued. You build your own power and continue to fight Ming Kong for the throne. If you succeed, I promise to vouch for you. Under your rule, no force in this world will dare to strike or retaliate against the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty under the pretext of them having colluded with the Netherworld. My Jiang family has the strength to back that claim. However, you know how difficult this path will be. Ming Kong has the support of most of your family ancestors and experts. He also has the backing of the Netherworld Race. Even now, he has two true gods and two false gods guarding him. You, on the other hand, have only the Wenchang Academy, the Owl King, and this city of Copper Demon. Think it over. Having said his piece, Jiang Xuan stepped away to give Ming Fan space to think. He then took a moment to check a transmission coming from his own clan. The Wenchang Saintess leaned in to persuade him. Ming Fan, the first path is already a wonderful option. It was not easy for Brother Jiang to do this much for us. You have already reached the realm of a great sage. If you study under the master and rebuild the academy, you might one day become the next master yourself. This is a massive stroke of fortune for you. At that moment, the Owl King approached them. Ming Fan turned to him and asked, What do you think, Owl King? I cannot give you advice, the Owl King replied calmly. But I am the Owl King of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. The implication was clear. If Ming Fan chose the first path, the Owl King would leave. If he chose the second, the Owl King would stay. Ming Fan nodded, understanding the gravity of the choice. A few moments later, Jiang Xuan returned and asked with a smile, Well, little master, have you decided? I have, Ming Fan replied with a smile of his own. That is more like it. Jiang Xuan reached out to pat Ming Fan's shoulder, but Ming Fan quietly shifted and dodged the gesture. Jiang Xuan's hand hit empty air. He felt a flash of awkwardness and confusion. You chose the second path? Ming Kong has two true gods and two false gods protecting him. You really dare to fight that head-on? Ming Fan looked Jiang Xuan in the eye, his smile light and airy. Brother Jiang, we are friends, are we not? Jiang Xuan was stunned. He stared at Ming Fan for a long time before a sincere smile finally broke across his face. He reached out again, and this time, Ming Fan did not dodge. Jiang Xuan clapped him firmly on the shoulder. "We are friends," Jiang Xuan said with a firm nod. He then laughed and added, "You have guts. But I really hope I do not have to be the one to bury you." Ming Fan laughed as well. "No need for that. I was born in the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty, and I shall die in the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty." As the Wenchang Saintess, Jiang Chun, and the other geniuses looked on in confusion, Jiang Xuan and Ming Fan shared a hearty laugh. The Owl King watched from the sidelines, his eyes filled with a touch of envy and nostalgia. In this world of cultivation where interests usually come first, finding one or two true friends without hidden agendas was a rare thing. Back in the day, he, Heavenly Venerate Luo Ming, and Jiang Haotian were much the same. Though, it was possible Jiang Haotian was simply so bored on his path to invincibility that he decided to drag the two of them along for the ride. Could that broken stone really be a supreme cultivation manual? The Owl King wondered. He recalled what Luo Ming had said and noticed how much the other man's strength had improved. He decided he would try to meditate on it again once he returned. Soon after, the Wenchang Saintess and her students bid their farewells. Since Ming Fan had made his choice, she was determined to support him with everything the academy had. Ming Fan followed the Owl King back to the manor in Copper Demon City to begin planning their next move. Countless experts who had been limited by those shackles finally broke through their bottlenecks and began their charge toward the divine realm. Most of these were people trapped at the half-step false god level, but there were also many half-step true god monsters among them. Dark tribulations gathered in the skies across Xuantian as one cultivator after another faced their trials. The realm fell into a period of prolonged upheaval. These were the omens of a great era. Because Jiang Changshou had broken the shackles, the suppression of the divine realm had faded. Experts were breaking through, spiritual energy was flooding back, and the rules of the great Tao were resurfacing. All of these were signs of a world recovering. It might still be some time before the true great era fully arrived, but there was no doubt that it was walking toward them. The struggle for dominance had begun. A grand era destined to be remembered for eternity had pulled back its curtains. Every powerful lineage and top faction responded immediately. They either revived their champions who had once been invincible, woke up their hidden geniuses from closed-door cultivation, or spent massive resources to train new talents. As these omens surfaced and Xuantian shook, the emergence of an ancient secret realm drew the eyes of every faction back to the central divine province. The Earth Emperor's secret realm had appeared. The palace of the supreme ancient powerhouse, the Earth Emperor, had finally resurfaced after vanishing since ancient times. Furthermore, it had appeared right within the territory of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Once again, the winds of change blew through Xuantian as factions dispatched their geniuses to the site. Brilliant and mysterious phenomena had long been appearing within the Great Ming borders, but no one had expected that the site would turn out to be the long-lost Earth Emperor's secret realm. Chapter 317. Heading to Great Ming to meet Nangong. "Congratulations on reaching the true God realm, Ancestor," Jiang Xuan said with a cheerful grin. Jiang Changshou rolled his eyes and snapped back. "It is just the true God realm. There is nothing worth celebrating. Under normal circumstances, he would have certainly taken the opportunity to show off. After all, breaking the shackles of heaven and earth to become the first true god of this era was a feat of immense significance. But after the chaotic events that had just unfolded, he was in no mood to boast. His senior brother, Jiang Changshou, had reached this level 1,000 years before him. Even Jiang Xuan's mother had stepped into a realm far beyond his own, capable of obliterating a Netherworld Heavenly God in an instant. Compared to them, he felt he had lost all face. "Grandpa, you are so amazing." Nuwa ran over with wide, sparkling eyes and a sweet smile. She reached out her pale, delicate arms like a child begging for a hug. But Jiang Changshou knew better. This was the same little girl who had already swindled him out of his own bed. Why would she suddenly act so affectionate? He did not believe for a single second that she had good intentions. Jiang Changshou silently stepped back, determined not to fall for her sweet trap. Seeing this, Nuwa's lips pouted and she began to sob. "Does Grandpa not like me anymore?" Jiang Changshou froze, a shiver running down his spine. What in the world was she after this time? He kept a dark face, staring her down and refusing to give in to the act. Jiang Changtian, however, could not bear to watch. He scolded his junior. "Such a lovely child is calling you Grandpa, and yet you are guarding against her like she is a thief?" He reached down and scooped Nuwa into his arms with a smile. "Ignore him. Tell Grandpa Changtian what you want." Well, Nuwa blinked, realizing she had found an even better target. She gave a cheeky grin and said, "Grandpa, I am hungry." "That is easy. Grandpa will take you to find something to eat," Jiang Changtian said, carrying her away. Jiang Changshou watched them go, his gaze filled with a mix of pity and silent mourning for his senior brother. Jiang Xuan turned back to Jiang Changshou. "Ancestor, the Earth Emperor's secret realm has officially appeared." "Oh." Jiang Changshou retracted his gaze, his brow furrowed in surprise. "Such a coincidence." The Demon Cave incident had barely concluded before the Earth Emperor's secret realm surfaced. The timing was suspiciously close. It is indeed a bit too convenient, Jiang Xuan replied with a meaningful smile. News came from the clan that Jiang Changshou has returned. He is currently trying to gather another group of geniuses to head toward the secret realm. Who? Jiang Changshou? Jiang Changshou was stunned. Did he not die at your hands? He did. Jiang Xuan nodded, his smile deepening. That is why things are about to get interesting. Jiang Changshou felt his mind racing. He lacked too much information to make sense of the current situation. Who was the Jiang Changshou who had returned to the clan? And did the sudden appearance of the secret realm have something to do with this impostor? What is your plan then? Jiang Xuan lowered his gaze in thought for a moment before speaking slowly. We will rest for a while, and then we head to the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Regardless of whether it is a trap, the Earth Emperor's secret realm is worth investigating. There was one thing he left unsaid. His fiancée was currently at the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty, and it was time he went to see her. What about the Jiang Changshou in the clan? Jiang Changshou asked. Jiang Xuan laughed. Ancestor Mountain said that everything is under his control and we have no need to worry. Jiang Changshou relaxed and nodded. With Ancestor Mountain personally overseeing the matter, it does not matter what kind of villain that impostor is. He will not be able to cause any real trouble. Also, more news came from the clan. Jiang Xuan added with a strange expression. Jiang Hong has returned. Born with divine bones and a reincarnated deity. He left on his own to find his own opportunities, so his gains must be significant, Jiang Changshou said thoughtfully. However, he changed his tone. The gap between him and you is likely growing wider and wider. He glanced at Jiang Xuan with a hint of envy. You brat, you are about to step into the Tianyuan realm, aren't you? Jiang Xuan nodded. Once I organize what I have gained recently, I should be able to break through. But, he looked at the ancestor and chuckled. According to the clan, Jiang Hong is already at the peak of the earthly profound realm and is preparing to break through as well. So fast. Jiang Changshou was surprised. Was he not just at the spirit manifestation realm when he left? Yes, Jiang Xuan sighed with a deep look in his eyes. A child of destiny is truly extraordinary. Still, it made sense. For a reincarnated soul, the early stages of cultivation had no bottlenecks as long as there were enough resources. There were no barriers to hinder their progress. However, once they reached the later stages, breaking past the level of their previous life would be incredibly difficult. If they could not surpass their past self, it would become a lifelong prison. Suddenly, a cry of shock erupted from Jiang Qingtian in the distance. You have already finished 10 Dao herbs, and you are still hungry. Jiang Xuan and Jiang Changshou looked at each other and shared a knowing smile. Meanwhile, at the Longevity Jiang family in the Eastern Divine Province, inside the ancestral hall, Jiang Changshou stood bowing before the Great Elder. Great Elder, I failed our people during the mission to the Demon Cave and caused the loss of several kinsmen. Now that the Earth Emperor's secret realm has opened, I wish to make amends. I am willing to lead our forces again to claim these opportunities for the Jiang family. I hold the key to the secret realm, so this mission will be a guaranteed success. The elders sitting on either side exchanged deep, meaningful looks. The Great Elder sat as still as an old statue. He did not agree, nor did he refuse. He simply replied in a flat tone, wait a little longer. Jiang Changshou was startled, and a trace of unease began to creep into his heart. Had he made a mistake? Had these elders realized he was an impostor? It should not be possible. In his past life, he was a heavenly god. Even though he was currently the dark half of the Yin-Yang Saint Lord, and his power was limited to the venerable level, he still possessed mastery over the Tao of Yin. He was confident he could deceive even a true god while disguised as Jiang Changshou. Besides, if they knew he was a fake, they would have attacked him already rather than brushing him off like this. What exactly went wrong? Jiang Changshou wondered. Since the Great Elder did not give permission, Jiang Changshou had no choice but to retreat to his own courtyard. As soon as he left, the elders let out a collective sigh of relief. Acting was truly difficult for them. They honestly could not see any flaws in this Jiang Changshou. His appearance, cultivation, aura, and even his speech and small habits were identical to the real person. However, the real Jiang Changshou's life tablet had shattered long ago. When a life tablet breaks, the person is undeniably dead. For this man to suddenly appear and claim he wanted to lead their geniuses to a secret realm was absurd. Even a fool would know he was an impostor. Chapter 318. A game within a game, reaching the stratosphere. The fourth elder kept his gaze fixed on Jiang Qianqin's departing figure until the younger man had completely vanished from the ancestral hall. Only then did he slowly retract his eyes. Great Elder, what are Ancestor Mountain's instructions? If Ancestor Mountain gave the word, the fourth elder would be the first to charge out and crush this Jiang Changshou with his bare hands. Whether this version of Jiang Changshou was real or fake mattered little to him anymore. Deep down, the fourth elder was suffocating under a cloud of suppressed rage and fear. Every time he recalled how he had blindly sided with Jiang Changshou in an attempt to strip Jiang Xuan of his position as young clan leader, his heart trembled. He was terrified. Make amends? He was the one who needed to make amends more than anyone. Several other elders shared his sentiment. They were the ones who had previously leaned toward Jiang Changshou, and now they were desperate to redeem themselves. The great elder shot a flat, knowing look at the fourth elder before speaking in a low, heavy tone. Ancestor Mountain has ordered us to select several elders with sufficient strength. We are to use secret techniques to disguise ourselves as young geniuses and follow this Jiang Changshou to the Earth Emperor's secret realm. We will identify the masterminds behind him and then wipe them all out in one fell swoop. I volunteer to go, the fourth elder blurted out immediately. Several other elders followed suit, their voices overlapping. We are willing to go as well. Back at his own cultivation grounds, Jiang Changshou quickly retrieved a transmission talisman and established contact with the Yin-Yang Saint Lord. Yin and Yang energy swirled as an ancient bronze mirror hovered in the air, revealing the hazy, indistinct silhouette of the Saint Lord. What is it? The Saint Lord asked. Is the real Jiang Changshou truly dead? The impostor, who was actually the Saint Lord's past life dark body, asked in a grim voice. The great elder's attitude had been far too strange. He had to consider every possibility to prepare for what was coming. After all, he knew the longevity Jiang family's power all too well. With their spirit race bloodline, their hidden foundations were unfathomably deep. Absolutely impossible, the Yin-Yang Saint Lord replied firmly. Jiang Changshou was already at the half-step Tianyuan realm. How could he possibly die in the demon cave? Furthermore, I planted a soul covenant within him long ago. I can sense his life or death at all times. Since the covenant is still intact, he has certainly not perished. As he spoke, the Saint Lord held up a 3-inch-long stick of blood-red incense, the physical manifestation of the soul covenant. The incense was still burning, proving that Jiang Qianqin's life force had not been extinguished. That is for the best then, the dark body replied, letting out a small sigh of relief. As long as he had not been exposed, there was still a chance. I have already moved to open the Earth Emperor's secret realm. You must speed up on your end. Gather a group of Jiang family geniuses and bring them there. The Yin-Yang Saint Lord lowered his gaze, his voice turning somber. Ever since Jiang Changshou broke the shackles of the world and reached the true God realm, the heavenly suppression against the divine realm has mostly dissipated. I have sensed various hidden tribulations occurring across the lands. The advantage I held by merging with your false god power is fading. We must obtain more Jiang family essence blood as soon as possible to complete our fusion. We need to reach the true God realm to ensure the success of our next phase. I understand, the dark body replied coldly. Additionally, with Jiang Changshou, the Jiang family now has 2 true gods on the surface. You must be extremely careful. Do not let them notice any flaws. Lead the geniuses out of the family estate before the true gods return, just in case. It was clear that the glimpse of the Jiang family's hidden power had rattled the Saint Lord. He was flustered, terrified that a single mistake would bring the Jiang family true gods to the gates of the Yin-Yang holy ground. You talk too much, the dark body sneered. I warned you long ago that the Jiang family was unpredictable. If you are only feeling fear now, it might be too late. Besides, it is just 2 true gods. Why the panic? I founded the Yin-Yang holy ground in the ancient era and have maintained its legacy to this day. Our accumulated strength may not equal the Jiang family, but it is not far off. Even if that phantom who slew the heavenly god showed up in person, we might still be able to hold our own. Do you think the title of the Eastern Divine Province's #1 sect is just for show? The dark body glared at the Saint Lord. As the current Saint Lord, you need to sharpen your resolve. The Saint Lord's expression shifted. He fell silent for a moment before nodding, his tone turning sinister. Do not worry. I will not lose my head. Everything is prepared at the Earth Emperor's secret realm. I am only waiting for you to arrive with the Jiang family geniuses. Wait for my signal, the dark body replied. After cutting the connection, the dark body fell into deep thought. After a moment, a plan formed, and he wore a cruel smile identical to the one the real Jiang Changshou used to wear. He walked out of his residence and headed toward the ancestral shrine of Jiang Qianqin's branch to seek the help of the lineage elders. Deep within the demon cave, a soul covenant, the true demon reached into its own chest and pulled out a strand of shimmering yin and yang energy. It laughed with genuine interest. To speed up its recovery, the demon had not only devoured the supreme shadow it had manifested in its past life, but had also consumed most of the demonic energy in the cave. During that feast, it had apparently absorbed the flesh and blood of a genius who was being used to host a demonic body. That person was long dead, but the soul covenant in his system had integrated into the true demon's own body. The waters of the Xuantian realm are deeper than I thought, the true demon muttered to itself. This technique is rare. Even in my era, few could master it. On one hand, the composition of a soul covenant was extremely complex. On the other hand, its practical uses were limited, making it rarely worth the effort. Fine. Since karma has seen fit to plant this on me, I shall accept the challenge. Any force capable of such a technique must have a decent foundation. It would serve as a good source of resources to compensate for the losses caused by its premature awakening. At the residence of Jiang Hong, within Jiang Xian's lineage. Spiritual energy, almost liquid in its density, flowed around Jiang Hong's body. He sat cross-legged atop a shimmering projection of the mountain-shaking tripod. His entire body glowed with divine light. Within his closed eyes, divine flames flickered, seemingly containing countless profound truths as the light of the great Tao pulsed around him. His aura was like a volcano preparing to erupt, surging steadily upward. After a long interval, the projection of the tripod vibrated, emitting a heavy, ancient sound. Jiang Hong's aura suddenly exploded, breaking directly into the Tianyuan realm. A trace of heavenly path power emerged, reflecting the rules of all laws as it orbited his body. A moment later, the brilliant lights faded. Jiang Hong returned to a state of simplicity, his presence becoming even more profound and restrained. Finally, the Tianyuan realm. As his breakthrough ended, Jiang Hong exhaled a long breath of murky air and allowed a faint smile to cross his face. He had left the Jiang family alone to travel to the furthest reaches of the central divine province. Relying on his past life memories and various preparations, he had successfully retrieved a divine object from beneath 10,000 miles of ice. This object allowed his myriad law heavenly eye to reach a new level, and his cultivation had jumped 2 full realms. To leap from the spirit manifestation realm to the Tianyuan realm in less than half a month was a speed that had no equal in the Xuantian realm. To some extent, he had every right to be proud. However, Jiang Hong's eyes twitched behind his closed lids, and a bitter smile touched his lips. Even I was fooled by you. He had a growing feeling that his new life, which had only just begun, was already destined to be lived in the shadow of that man. Chapter 319. Jiang Hong joins the expedition to the Earth Emperor's secret realm. Jiang Hong shook his head, pushing his stray emotions aside. He had spent this life following a precise plan, and everything had moved forward with a satisfying smoothness. Just as he had intended when he forcibly entered the spirit realm at birth, his goal this time was to pursue the great Tao he had left unfinished. He felt no real need to compete in the petty squabbles of the younger generation. He had to admit that Jiang Xuan was formidable. Whether it was natural talent, comprehension, foundational strength, or raw luck, not to mention background, Jiang Xuan surpassed him by a significant margin. However, this realization did not shake Jiang Hong's internal balance. He had his own path to walk, and since Jiang Xuan's journey did not obstruct his own, he saw no reason to go looking for trouble. In fact, because they shared the Jiang family bloodline, Jiang Hong realized he might even benefit from Jiang Xuan's rising power. For instance, on his journey home, his identity as a member of the Jiang family acted as a universal pass. At one point, he had encountered 2 first-rate factions engaged in a brutal skirmish. Bodies littered the ground, and the fighting was frantic. Yet the moment his Jiang family immortal boat came into view, both sides stopped dead in their tracks. They waited until he was hundreds of miles away before resuming their slaughter. This illustrated exactly how high the Jiang family's status had risen across the Xuantian realm. Most of that prestige was thanks to Jiang Xuan and his mother, the woman who had instantly obliterated a heavenly god of the Netherworld. I thought I would return to act as your protector and help you secure your seat as the young clan leader, but I never expected. Jiang Hong laughed softly to himself. Before all this, who could have guessed that the Jiang Changshou who stirred the true spirit's secret realm, the ancestral bloodline genius of the family, and the shield acting as the young clan leader were all the same person? This truly is a great era. It is exciting enough. Jiang Hong's smile was bright. He felt a genuine sense of anticipation for the future. He wondered what heights Jiang Xuan would reach by the time he himself exhausted his past life foundations, perfected his myriad law heavenly eye, and attained his Tao. Between the two of them, who would ultimately be the stronger? I am looking forward to it, he thought. Then, he stood up and walked out of his cultivation chamber. Wait, you broke through to the Tianyuan realm that quickly? A lively young girl noticed his presence and emerged from a nearby cave dwelling. She stared at Jiang Hong with surprise, looking him up and down. Jiang Hong nodded with a smile. It is thanks to you, Lady Feishian. If you had not stepped in to help, I might have perished beneath those 10,000 miles of ice. He had ventured into the glacial abyss deep under the ice to retrieve a divine object known as the 10,000-year ice essence. In the process, he had accidentally awakened the remnant soul of a snow demon. They had fought for 3 days. Despite using every trick in his arsenal, he couldn't kill it. He only survived because this girl, who called herself Feishian, had intervened. From the spirit manifestation realm to the Tianyuan realm in less than half a month. Feishian covered her mouth in shock. Jiang Hong, I feel like you are much more impressive than that Ming Kong guy at the top of the hidden dragon list. At the very least, he doesn't break through as fast as you do. Jiang Hong chuckled and shook his head. In the eyes of a true genius, a cultivation level is the least useful thing to measure. Huh, Feishian blinked. But my great-grandpa says that top-tier geniuses are usually equal in talent and foundation. He says the gap in cultivation is usually what determines the gap in actual strength. Then I can only say that your great-grandpa does not truly understand what it means to be a genius, Jiang Hong replied calmly. Feixian wrinkled her nose and put her hands on her hips in annoyance. My great-grandpa is. She cut herself off, swallowing the rest of her sentence. She glared at Jiang Hong and huffed. I will not lower myself to your level. Jiang Hong laughed it off. He didn't need to pry to know where Lady Feixian came from. In the far eastern reaches of the central divine province, atop that vast expanse of ice, there was only one ancient power, the Feixian Pavilion. Since she used the name Feixian, her identity was obvious. Since she chose not to speak of it openly, he was wise enough not to expose her. At that moment, the Great Elder arrived, his white robes fluttering as he descended from the sky. Jiang Hong was curious, but quickly bowed in greeting. My respects to the Great Elder. You have reached the Tianyuan realm? The Great Elder looked at Jiang Hong, his eyes flashing with surprise. Unlike Jiang Xuan, who had always hidden his progress, the Great Elder had watched Jiang Hong grow step by step. Even so, the time frame was incredibly short. It had only been 4 or 5 months since this boy was born amidst earth-shaking divine bone phenomena. To be in the Tianyuan realm already was staggering. Even for a reincarnated deity with past life memories, this cultivation speed was nothing short of terrifying. The trip was successful, so my cultivation progressed a little, Jiang Hong replied. He wasn't arrogant, but he didn't indulge in false modesty either. The Great Elder nodded in admiration. With Jiang Xuan abroad and you at home, our Jiang family's rise in this era is assured. It was a strange situation. Initially, Jiang Xuan had stayed hidden to an extreme degree, while Jiang Hong was quite flamboyant, drawing the eyes of countless factions across the eastern divine province. Now, the roles had reversed. Jiang Xuan was famous throughout the realm because of the Demon Cave incident, while the flamboyant Jiang Hong had faded into the background, rarely attracting outside attention. Did the Great Elder come here because there is something you need me to do? Jiang Hong asked directly. There is indeed a matter, the Great Elder replied. He waved his hand to set up a barrier and proceeded to tell Jiang Hong the entire story regarding the Jiang Changshou imposter currently in the clan. He concluded by saying, the intruder has used a strange secret technique to mimic Jiang Changshou perfectly. While we are certain he is a fake, we cannot identify the power backing him. Our current plan is to play along. 5 elders, Jiang Hong nodded, a satisfied smile appearing on his face as he accepted the ring. When do we leave? In 3 days. Good, Jiang Hong agreed. With that, the Great Elder took his leave. Feixian then sidled up to Jiang Hong and poked him with her finger. Can I go with you? Jiang Hong turned to her, his expression one of sharp surprise. You were able to hear our conversation? Who do you think you are looking at? Feixian rolled her eyes and patted her chest confidently. Your elder sister is very strong, you know. Chapter 320. Powerful Nangong, aiming for the Great Gong throne. Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Ancestral land. A towering sea of fire roared and surged, the scorching flames burning through the vast void. Nangong Mingyue stood upon the martial stage, a domain of fire resting in the palm of her hand. She looked down indifferently at the 5th divine son, who knelt before her in active submission. Then, she raised her eyes to scan the surroundings. Next, she said calmly. The entire arena fell silent. Everyone present was struck with awe and shock. Including the 5th divine son, Nangong Mingyue had now crushed 3 divine sons and 2 saintesses. Every victory had been achieved with a single strike. Her dominance was absolute. Under the weight of her terrifying fire domain, even the 5th divine son, who had reached the peak of the earthly profound realm, stood no chance. Every technique he attempted was instantly incinerated. In fact, had he not been decisive enough to surrender, he likely would have been reduced to a pile of ash. She only just entered the earthly profound realm, yet she subdued a peak expert in one move. How can Nangong Mingyue be this strong? The disciples whispered among themselves, their glances toward her filled with fear and suspicion. Half a month ago, the awakening of her saint body had shaken the ancestral land. At the time, they were stunned but had not taken her too seriously. Back then, her cultivation had only just reached the spirit manifestation realm. She trailed far behind the other candidates and seemed unlikely to ever catch up. When she arrogantly demanded that the other divine sons and saintesses withdraw from the race for the throne, they dismissed her as a commoner from the borderlands, a frog at the bottom of a well who was too conceited to be useful. No one expected her to actually do it. With her meager cultivation, she had stepped alone into the treacherous fire zone. In just dozens of days, she had not only returned safely and broken into the earthly profound realm, but had also achieved the impossible by taking the entire fire domain for herself. According to the ancient records of the Nangong family, that domain was a fragment of a supreme fire-type treasure possessing boundless power. For millions of years, the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty had controlled this region. Countless brilliant ancestors had tried to refine or subdue the flames, but all had failed, ending up as fuel for the fire. Yet Nangong Mingyue had succeeded. At the mere earthly profound realm, she had miraculously gained control and walked out stronger than ever. Today, She had made good on her word, challenging the candidates one by one. Aside from the third divine son, Nangong Fengtian, who had already withdrawn, she had now defeated 5 of the 8 contenders. Only the second saintess, Nangong Yehua, and the eldest divine son, Nangong Wentian, remained. 2 months ago, Nangong Wentian had entered secluded meditation to charge toward the Tianyuan realm and had yet to emerge. Meanwhile, the second saintess followed the immortal Cui You, traveling across the realm with no fixed location. In other words, there was no one left today who could suppress the ninth saintess. After today, her rise is inevitable. The disciples and elders of the Nangong family marveled as they watched her heroic figure on the stage. The fate of the Great Gan throne has become entirely unpredictable. Only the eldest divine son, the second saintess, and the ninth saintess are left with the qualifications to compete. The struggle has reached a fever pitch. The conflict between these lineages and their followers is bound to become even more brutal. One elder sighed while stroking his beard, his expression troubled. Now that the Earth Emperor's secret realm has appeared, geniuses from every faction are gathering here. Mixed with the internal power struggles of Great Gan, I fear our dynasty is headed for a violent upheaval. At the side of the stage, Princess Xuan clenched her fists. She could hardly contain her excitement. She had lost count of how many times she had felt grateful for bringing Nangong Mingyue back to the clan. It was the wisest decision she had ever made. Because of Nangong Mingyue, her branch finally had the right to compete for the throne and was now on the verge of entering the direct line of succession to lead the family. Nangong Mingyue's talent had far exceeded her expectations. She had mastered a Dao domain at the entry level, awakened a saint body at the spirit manifestation realm, and then reached the earthly profound realm in just over 10 days while claiming the fire domain as her own. With this terrifying aptitude and cultivation speed, the throne was within her reach. Furthermore, she possessed a staggering background. Her fiancé, the young clan leader of the Jiang family, Jiang Xuan. Before the incident at the Demon Cave, Jiang Xuan and the longevity Jiang family were merely a background to be noted. Within the Nangong family and the Great Gan Immortal Dynasty, they were respected but not feared. However, after that unknown Jiang family expert appeared and instantly killed a Netherworld Heavenly God, everything changed. Their status had soared. Today, as the Great Era looms, no force dares to slight the Jiang family. Even the Great Gan Immortal Dynasty must tread carefully. Whenever they make a decision, they must consider whether it might involve the Jiangs. This was precisely why Nangong Mingyue was able to challenge the other candidates so smoothly. Even though her methods were harsh and had left several divine sons wounded, the elders of the various branches had not intervened. The influence of Jiang Xuan was a major factor. Princess Xuan knew from her own ancestors that the leaders of the various branches had reached a private consensus. The struggle for the throne would return to a state of fair competition, and no branch elder or supporter would be allowed to interfere. This ensured that Nangong Mingyue would not suffer unfair treatment, which might anger Jiang Xuan. On the other hand, it also prevented the Jiang family from having a reason to step in and manipulate the succession directly. Seeing that no one else was coming forward to fight, Nangong Mingyue felt a bit bored. She had expected the geniuses of the Great Gan Immortal Dynasty to provide a real test for her current strength, but she was disappointed. She looked toward the section where the elders of the eldest divine son and second saintess stood. "Please inform Nangong Wentian and Nangong Yehua that my time is valuable," she said. "I can only give them 1 month. If they have not accepted my challenge by then, do not blame me for ignoring the rules and ascending the throne directly." The crowd gasped. The ninth saintess was incredibly arrogant. The faces of those from the rival branches paled and then darkened with unease. They had to admit that with Jiang Xuan and the Jiang family at her back, Nangong Mingyue truly had the power to break the rules and force her own coronation. It was not that the Jiang family was strong enough to simply dictate who sat on the Great Gan throne. Rather, the terrifying depth of the Jiang family's hidden strength forced the Great Gan ancestors to weigh the risks and choose the path of least resistance. Chapter 321. My strikes only discriminate between life and death. In a hazy immortal pavilion 100 miles away from the martial stage, the second saintess, Nangong Yehua, looked on with a face full of resentment. Divine radiance surged around her body as her half-step Tianyuan cultivation fluctuated violently. She looked ready to storm out and punish Nangong Mingyue. "Do not be impulsive." At her side, Fairy Cui You raised a hand to stop Nangong Yehua, speaking in a flat tone. Nangong Mingyue is currently at the height of her momentum. It is not wise to clash with her head-on. Furthermore, she is backed by the longevity Jiang family and holds the absolute advantage. You will not have many opportunities for a fair fight, so you must use them cautiously. Wait until you ascend to the Tianyuan realm. Once you have a guaranteed victory, you can strike once and kick her out of the race for good. At that time, even if Jiang Xuan is unreasonable and insists on supporting her, you will have the standing to resist, and the Nangong family will be forced to side with you. Nangong Yehua remained unwilling. "Master." She did not understand. The struggle for the throne was supposed to be a contest of strength. What was the point of relying on a man? Fairy Chui Yu's brow furrowed. A cold, sharp gaze fell upon Nangong Yahua. The girl's heart trembled. She lowered her head in fear and whispered like a cicada in winter. Your disciple understands. Fairy Chui Yu's expression finally softened. This concerns the throne of Great Gon, the prosperity of our lineage, and your own future path. These matters are of great importance. You must not act on mere emotion. This woman has mastered a Tao domain of fire, forged a powerful saint body, and now commands the fire domain itself. Her combat strength far exceeds her cultivation level. Even the fifth divine son was no match for a single strike from her. You have mastered my path of heartlessness and have had your own lucky encounters to perfect your Tao body, but at best, you only have a 70% chance of victory. That is not stable. Once you enter the Tianyuan realm, crushing Nangong Mingyue will be as easy as flipping your palm. Looking at Nangong Yahua, Fairy Chui Yu instructed, wait a few more days. Focus on your breakthrough. Yes, Nangong Yahua replied with a nod. She looked out toward Nangong Mingyue, cold light flickering in the depths of her eyes. A lowborn girl from the wild shouldn't think she can become a phoenix just because she found a powerful man. Back on the stage, after notifying the factions of the eldest divine son and the second saintess, Nangong Mingyue turned and walked down. She ignored the complex gazes of her kinsmen, filled with curiosity, awe, and worship, and returned directly to her own training grounds. Princess Zixuan followed closely behind. Once they were inside, Zixuan spoke with urgent anxiety. Mingyue, your cultivation. 3 days ago, I was fortunate enough to step into the earthly profound realm, Nangong Mingyue said casually. Truly the earthly profound realm? Zixuan was stunned. Just entering the earthly profound realm, and you subdued a peak expert in one move? Even though she had seen the battles with her own eyes, it was still hard to believe. Could a fresh, earthly, profound cultivator really crush the other divine sons and saintesses? Granted, Nangong Mingyue's talent and foundations were terrifying, but those other candidates were geniuses seen once in 10,000 years. Every one of them possessed a powerful constitution, talent, bloodline, and ancient treasures. Yet Nangong Mingyue could still suppress them across nearly an entire major realm. It was absurd. Making a horizontal comparison, Zixuan even felt that in terms of raw aptitude, perhaps even her fiancé, Jiang Xuan, could not compare to her. Of course, Jiang Xuan's background was another matter entirely. Zixuan felt a bitter smile tug at her lips. She recalled how she had once looked down on Jiang Xuan, thinking he was not worthy of the rising Nangong Mingyue. Fortunately, I never said those stupid words aloud, she thought, a wave of lingering fear washing over her. Nangong Mingyue smiled faintly. Aunt, did you come here for a reason? Zixuan snapped back to attention and nodded. 3 things. First, though you defeated the fifth divine son and the others, do not let your guard down. The eldest divine son and the second saintess are your true rivals. The eldest divine son went into seclusion 2 months ago to charge for the Tianyuan realm. He should have succeeded by now. As for the second saintess, though her tracks are hidden while she follows Fairy Chui Yu, her cultivation should be nearing the Tianyuan realm as well. You are only at the beginning of the earthly profound realm, so you must remain cautious. Tianyuan, Nangong Mingyue smiled, her expression carrying a hint of disdain and contempt. Seeing this, Zixuan grew worried, fearing that Nangong Mingyue's recent rapid progress had caused her ego to swell. The Tianyuan realm is an entire level above the earthly profound. It provides the first contact with the power of the heavenly Tao and insight into the myriad laws of heaven and earth. Whether it is divine abilities or the application of the great Tao, the power increases dozens of times over. You cannot become arrogant just because you defeated the likes of the fifth divine son today. Nangong Mingyue shook her head with a laugh. Aunt, you have no need to worry. I know what I am doing. Cultivation level. Nangong Mingyue's eyes narrowed slightly, flashing with a mysterious light. It is the least useful thing of all. Zixuan froze, unable to comprehend the statement. However, knowing that some things were best left alone, she trusted that someone as brilliant as Nangong Mingyue would not lose her way. She moved on to the next point. The second matter. The Earth Emperor's secret realm, which appeared briefly in ancient times, has resurfaced. It is within the borders of our Great Ming Immortal Dynasty. Because omens appeared early, the world is already watching, and Great Ming cannot hide it alone. We expect the geniuses of the entire Xuantian realm to gather here within the next few days. The Ancestor wants you to step forward as the ninth saintess. You have a reputation, but you have never officially appeared or shown a major record of achievement. He wants you to act as the host on behalf of the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty to receive these geniuses. Zixuan looked at her and lowered her voice. The Ancestor's idea is for you to begin adapting to the use of power. Understood, Nangong Mingyue nodded, though her attitude suggested she didn't care much. And the third thing? The third thing. Zixuan's expression stiffened into one of difficulty. A few days ago, elders from the Zhengyi sect, the Great Sun Holy Ground, and the Fuguang Holy Ground visited. They came to propose a marriage alliance. A marriage alliance? Nangong Mingyue's brow furrowed. What does that have to do with me? Zixuan offered a sheepish smile. Nangong Mingyue understood immediately and let out a strange laugh. They want a marriage alliance with me? Yes, Zixuan nodded. Do those factions also have heavenly gods? Nangong Mingyue teased. She wasn't angry. She just found it ridiculous. But then she realized that the fact Zixuan was even bringing this up meant the clan's attitude was worth questioning. Did the elders agree? Her smile turned cold. Zixuan trembled and shook her head quickly. How could we possibly dare to do such a thing? Those ancestors were currently debating whether their methods of handling the throne would offend the Jiang family. How could they possibly agree to such a laughable proposal? Furthermore, those factions were worlds apart from the Jiang family in terms of power. Agreeing to such a thing? They weren't idiots. Then why are you even asking me? Nangong Mingyue was puzzled. We did not agree to the alliance, but their elders brought their saint sons along. They are top-tier lineages of the Central Divine Province and wish to stay here. We could not easily drive them away. The saint sons of those three factions have been saying they will wait for you to return so they can discuss the Tao with you. Nangong Mingyue's face darkened. Her eyes turned icy as she looked at Zixuan. Please tell the ancestor this. If he does not personally throw the people from those three factions out of Great Gan, he should be prepared to go to war with them in the future. When I strike, I generally do not worry about holding back. My strikes only discriminate between life and death. Chapter 322. Out in the world, background is everything. To the southeast of the Great Gan Immortal Dynasty, a massive chasm stretched 10,000 feet high and 10,000 miles long. It bridged the horizon like a celestial giant lying across the world, its towering form dividing the land in every direction. This natural wonder was known as the heaven-shattering divine peak. A month ago, strange phenomena began to stir within the peak. Dense spiritual energy flowed through the valleys, and brilliant visions flickered across the sky, drawing the attention of countless nearby factions. Several days ago, when Jiang Changshou of the longevity Jiang family forcefully crossed his tribulation and broke the world's shackles, the laws of the great Tao manifested and spiritual energy surged backward. The heaven-shattering divine peak underwent a violent transformation. Resplendent clouds drifted through the air, and thousands of golden flowers fell from the heavens. Miraculous sights appeared one after another, gods bowing their heads, Buddhas plucking flowers, and celestial maidens soaring through the clouds. Amidst the guard of countless brilliant Taos, the majestic silhouette of a grand palace gradually emerged. A sacred aura, impossible to describe, fell like sweet dew to nourish 10,000 miles of earth. Spirit mists rose, and immortal vapors swirled. The mysterious rules of the great Tao flickered in and out of sight, making the place look like a sanctuary for the gods. This was the Earth Emperor's secret realm. According to ancient records, this realm was created by the Earth Emperor, an eternal powerhouse from the primordial era. He was said to have taken stars from beyond the heavens to forge this celestial palace. Within its walls lay the treasures of half his life, creation techniques, supreme divine herbs, and the secrets of the great Tao. Any treasure one could imagine existed within. The authenticity of these records could no longer be verified. The world only knew that during the remote era, the Earth Emperor's secret realm had appeared once. At that time, it was forcibly seized and sealed by a mysterious powerhouse who exiled it beyond the dimensions. Now, ancient masters of divination claimed that the realm had returned in response to the coming of the Great Age. It held infinite fortune, and those who obtained it might climb to the very peak of existence. As soon as this word spread, the Xuantian realm boiled with excitement. Across the 5 great provinces, countless holy grounds, great sects, and ancient families took immediate action. Geniuses were recalled, and sleeping monsters were awakened. There were even old eccentrics nearing the end of their lifespans who forcibly seized bodies to be reborn, entering the fray in a new form. For a time, winds howled and clouds surged across the Xuantian realm as countless experts swarmed toward the Great Gan Immortal Dynasty to seize the infinite opportunities within the secret realm. At the longevity Jiang family, the great elder spoke to Jiang Changshou in front of the hall housing the teleportation array. The Earth Emperor's secret realm is of immense importance, and the entire world is watching. Hidden monsters from all sides are emerging, making it incredibly dangerous. Although you are the leader of this group, you must consult Jiang Hong for his opinion. I understand, Jiang Qingqin replied readily. Internally, he sneered. Consult Jiang Hong? Once they entered the secret realm, everyone would be nothing more than prey for him. He had been worried that he might have been exposed, but it seemed he had overthought it. The Jiang family was still the same, blinded by arrogance now that their hidden powerhouse had been revealed. Jiang Qingqin shot a subtle, greedy glance at Jiang Hong. Divine bones, he thought. The Jiang family is truly generous to let him come. Meanwhile, Jiang Hong and the elders disguised as young geniuses looked at Jiang Qingqin with flat expressions, treating him like a clown in a play. At the immortal Zhao family, Zhao Fuyao walked out of her meditation chambers. She had completely integrated the essence of her past life self, turning it into her own foundation. She had reached the Tianyuan realm. Congratulations, goddess, Mother Seven Stars said, bowing her head. Make the preparations, Zhao Fuyao commanded. We head to the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty in the Central Province to compete for the Earth Emperor's secret realm. Mother Seven Stars acknowledged the order and left to begin the journey. Zhao Fuyao stood before her hall, hands behind her back, her deep starlight eyes gazing into the distance. Brilliant starlight bloomed beneath her feet. The entire Zhao family ancestral land, the massive star that was her past life self, trembled slightly, pouring vast amounts of astral power into her. Her aura grew increasingly powerful and vast. The great age is finally arriving, she murmured. Sensing something, a cold arc touched her lips. The true struggle has only just begun. I wonder who is worthy to be the stepping stone for my ascent to the peak. At the Pure Yang Sword Palace, two young men in sun-patterned robes stood on either side of the main hall. One possessed a violent sword aura that burned like a scorching sun. The other held a continuous, profound sword intent, appearing like a celestial swordsman descended to earth. These were two of the three sword sons of the Pure Yang Sword Palace. Both were in the Tianyuan realm. Yang Kong was the reincarnation of the third-generation Pure Yang Sword Master, a man invincible 2 eras ago. Ming Lishan had received teachings across time and space from an otherworldly sword immortal, suppressing countless geniuses. Both had sealed themselves within the solar core of the palace, waiting for this era. Now that the signs of the Great Age had appeared, they had broken their seals. Back at the true spirit secret realm, Sword Sun Hunga fell at the hands of Jiang Xuan. At that time, that brat Jiang Xuan shamelessly disguised himself as Jiang Qingqian and played us like toys, the Pure Yang Sword Master said, his voice thick with resentment but also a sense of helplessness. He sighed wearily before looking at the two sword sons with a heavy expression. The Jiang family is powerful now, backed by a mysterious figure who can slay a heavenly god. During this trip to the secret realm, unless you have absolute certainty, please avoid Jiang Xuan. Our Pure Yang Sword Palace. The master paused, the words sticking in his throat for a long moment before he finished with a look of bitter defeat. Cannot afford to provoke them. Yang Kong's face darkened. He had not expected the sect to fall to such a pathetic state. A mysterious expert who slays gods? Ming Litian sneered from the side. So what? Anyone who dares insult our Pure Yang Sword Palace has only one fate, death. The Sword Master and Yang Kong both turned to look at him with complex expressions. They wondered if he had stayed in his seal for so long that his brain had stopped working. Ming Litian remained calm. The shackles of heaven and earth are fading, and the Xuantian realm is no longer closed off. When I woke up, I established contact with my master. If needed, I can summon him to help at any time. If the Jiang family lacks eyes, I will simply cut them down. Your master? The Sword Master was stunned, but then realization dawned on him. You mean the otherworldly sword immortal who taught you across time? Precisely, Ming Litian said with a proud smile. Years ago, when he slashed through time to teach me, he had already reached an unsurpassed realm. Several eras have passed since then. With his strength, he has likely achieved immortality long ago. Even if the Jiang family has a godslayer, so what? They are still just ants. Ming Litian clasped his hands behind his back as mysterious sword intent swirled around him, giving him the detached air of an exiled immortal. He glanced at the other two and spoke with deep meaning. In the struggle of the Great Age, you need strength, but you need background even more. When we reach the secret realm, watch how my sword slays Jiang Xuan. Chapter 323. Changing Eras, the Longevity Yao clan emerges. Mirroring the actions of the Longevity Jiang clan, the Immortal Zhao clan, and the Pure Yang Sword Palace, top-tier sects across the 5 provinces of Xuantian began to move. One after another, powerful geniuses and monsters emerged, bathed in divine radiance like gods descending to the earth. It was only then that the world realized with a shock that many peerless talents who had made a name for themselves in the last era, or even thousands of years ago before abruptly vanishing, had not met with misfortune as suspected. Instead, they had intentionally sealed themselves away, waiting for this specific great age. Now that the Earth Emperor secret realm has appeared as a sign of this era, these frozen geniuses have all stepped out. Their return brought a massive sense of disparity to the current generation. These talents were either born with powerful Tao bodies, possessed staggering ancient inheritances, or were reincarnations of ancient experts carrying immense fortune. In fact, the once in 10,000 years Tao body now seemed as common as grass on the street. It felt as though if one did not possess a Tao body or a constitution of equal caliber, they were not even qualified to call themselves a genius. But the most absurd part was the cultivation levels. Among the hidden talents now emerging, nearly half had already reached the Tianyuan realm. What kind of concept was that? Before the incident at the Demon Cave, Ming Kong of the Great Netherworld had sat at the top of the younger generation specifically because of his Tianyuan cultivation. Furthermore, the hidden dragon list published by the Facian Pavilion only a few months ago was still hanging on the Longevity Tower. What were the cultivation levels of those listed? Most were merely in the earthly profound realm. Jiang Hong and Jiang Xuan, sitting at the bottom of that list, were only in the spirit manifestation realm. Cultivation truly was the least useful thing. Has the era changed? Countless people felt dazed. Before the Demon Cave incident, if the longevity Jiang clan was the representative of an ancient family with a long heritage that was slowly fading, then the longevity Yao clan was the absolute overlord that remained at its peak while hidden from the world. The two longevity families had once been incredibly close, sharing a mysterious connection that dated back to the early days of the primordial era. There was even a rumor popular in Xuantian for a time that both clans were descendants of the spirit race, carrying a bloodline that contained the essence of creation. Some supreme masters even speculated that one of the families might belong to a legendary royal lineage, though this was often dismissed since the 8 royal clans were thought to have perished during the ancient Great Calamity. The spirit race represented the absolute limit of the human bloodline. However, as the ages passed, much of that history was buried. The true nature of the spirit race and the internal relationship between the two Jiang and Yao families had become impossible to trace. One thing was certain: the longevity Yao clan was terrifying. The Jiang clan's depth was only recognized recently because of the exposure of 2 true gods and the mysterious expert who slew a heavenly god. Before that, the Jiangs were seen as an aging tiger. But the Yao clan had always been synonymous with power in the minds of everyone in Xuantian. Their status as hidden overlords was unshakable. Quite simply, during the middle of the ancient era, a saint who attained longevity had emerged from the Yao clan. The deep-rooted impression of their strength came from that saint, but it wasn't just about one person. It was about the timing, the middle of the ancient era. From the start of that age, the Xuantian realm had already begun to wither. The Daos were fading, and spiritual energy was plummeting. Even then, traces of saints were rare, and by the peak of the ancient era, even the divine realm was scarce. Yet the longevity Yao clan had defied the heavens, producing a saint who seized the name of longevity. The weight of that achievement was staggering. After the ancient era, the Yao clan announced their seclusion, stating that they would not appear until the Great Age arrived. Their divine realm experts refined a small world, taking the entire clan into the far reaches of the deep sky where no one could find them. But today, billions of living beings in Xuantian felt a shift. They looked toward the sky in suspicion and awe. An indescribable, massive black tortoise crawled out from the ends of deep space, instantly blotting out half the heavens. Upon its shell, it carried a vast landscape of mountains and rivers. This was the home of the longevity Yao clan. An elder dressed in gold stood atop the tortoise, looking down upon the world. His voice was a domineering, divine sound that declared to all of Xuantian, "Today, my longevity Yao clan officially returns." As the voice fell, it transformed into thousands of grand auras and vast visions that shook the 5 provinces. The tortoise moved slowly, its heavy claws tearing through the void. It opened a calm, orderly space in the chaotic region between the eastern and central provinces and flew straight in. A heavy roar echoed. The spatial storms that usually ravaged this chaotic zone became as submissive as rabbits under the heavy pressure of the tortoise, not daring to create a single ripple. The longevity Yao clan had settled. They did not deign to land in the 5 provinces or occupy any famous divine mountain. In their eyes, wherever the Yao clan settled was the most sacred land for cultivation. Countless sects and holy grounds trembled. The emergence of the Yao clan made the already heated struggle for the Earth Emperor's secret realm even more intense. They chose this exact moment to appear, clearly aiming for the secret realm. This created a sense of dread for many, but it also fueled the conviction of other geniuses. If even the Yao clan was appearing for it, there was a 99% chance that the secret realm contained the key to the Great Age. In the ancestral hall of the Yao clan, the gold-clad elder and clan leader, Yao Tiangang, sat in the primary seat. His majestic gaze swept over the experts lined up below him, finally resting on a young man in a gold robe sitting in the seat of honor on the left. This was the godson of the Yao clan, Yao Wuxian, named after the god of martial arts. He carried the mantle of the Yao ancestor and walked the path of the martial god. Not only did he possess a bloodline concentration of 90%, forging a martial god body that rivaled the innate saint body, but he also wielded the ancestor's weapon, the martial god spear. His Dao domain of martial arts had reached the middle stage. His combat power was divine. Even though his cultivation was only at the 9th level of the Tianyuan realm, he could easily crush those in the Dao integration realm. He could even fight across realms to strike down unranked venerables. According to the ancestor's notes, the Earth Emperor's secret realm was once controlled by a mysterious powerhouse. Its sudden appearance now may hide a secret, Yao Tiangang said calmly to Yao Wuxian. The treasures of the Earth Emperor are not that important for you. Take them if you wish. However, that 9th saintess of the Great Ming Dynasty, Nangong Minghua. He paused, his voice turning cold and sharp. You must take her into your hands. Based on the deductions of our ancestral artifacts, This woman hides a shocking secret. She is suspected to be related to the human emperor who vanished in the primordial era. If you take her as your wife, it will be of immense benefit to your future path toward the throne of the human king. At the very least, even if her secrets cannot be unraveled, the Nirvana Phoenix body she has forged makes her an excellent cultivation vessel. Her primordial essence can help your martial god body evolve, perhaps even forging the immortal martial body that even our ancestor never achieved. Chapter 324. Many great men have graced the past, but the greatest rise today. Yao Wuxian smiled faintly. Rest easy, father. I know exactly what needs to be done. At that moment, the great elder, seated in the primary position to the right, knit his brows. His voice was heavy as he spoke. Clan leader, we must still consider the stance of the longevity Jiang clan. According to our intelligence, Nangang Mingyue entered a marriage contract with Jiang Xuan, the young clan leader of the Jiangs, years ago. If our Yao clan forces a marriage upon her now, we risk infuriating them. We are both longevity clans and have historically maintained a decent relationship. To spark a deadly feud now seems unwise. He paused, glancing around the room. Furthermore, the Jiang clan is currently backed by a mysterious powerhouse capable of slaying heavenly gods. And this Jiang Xuan has caused quite a stir in Xuantian lately. He appears to be a formidable monster in his own right. Preposterous. Yao Tiangong's eye sharpened. He let out a sudden, furious roar. Do not boost the enemy's prestige while belittling our own. The Jiang clan is a hollow shell that declined long ago. Their title as a longevity clan should have been revoked ages ago. Do you truly think the Yao clan needs to care about their attitude? Do they even deserve such consideration? He stood, his voice booming with authority. When my Yao clan was hidden, we were the uncrowned overlords of Xuantian. Now that we have emerged, we are its absolute masters. Our ancestor emerged in the ancient era as a saint who stood alone above the world. Who would dare to defy us? His domineering words were backed by a majestic pressure that felt like the heavens collapsing. The ancestral hall trembled violently under the force of his aura. Every expert seated below felt their soul shudder. The great elder felt it most of all. Unable to withstand the terrifying pressure, his face grew pale, and cold sweat drenched his temples. Seeing the atmosphere turn stagnant, Yao Wuxian stood up and walked to the center of the hall. An unparalleled sharpness radiated from his body like a brilliant divine flame. Father, there is no need for anger. The great elder has always been cautious. His worries are born from his concern for our clan. Only then did Yao Tiangang withdraw his pressure. He let out a cold snort. 10 years of solitary confinement. The great elder gave a bitter smile. He stood and bowed deeply. I thank the clan leader for the punishment. During the millions of years the Yao clan remained hidden, they had grown arrogant, living entirely within the glory of an ancestor who became a saint. From the top leaders down to the tens of thousands of clansmen, they all held this as an absolute truth. The Yao clan was supreme, and the day they emerged would be the day they ruled the world. This delusional perception had reached its peak and was now impossible to break. While they were hidden, there was no conflict, so no errors were exposed. But now they had returned to the world. In the torrent of this great age, old monsters were appearing everywhere. If the clan leader and the rest of the family maintained this blind arrogance, disaster was inevitable. After all, the great elder was the only one who had bothered to gather intelligence on the current state of Xuantian. The others didn't care to even look. I hope I am simply being overcautious, the great elder sighed inwardly. He turned and headed toward the clan prison to serve his sentence. Meanwhile, Yao Wuxian looked at the assembled experts and smiled thinly. Issue an announcement to the Great Ming Immortal Dynasty in the name of the Yao clan. State that I, the god's son, shall offer the Earth Emperor's secret realm as a betrothal gift to marry their ninth saintess, Nangang Mingyue. Tell them to prepare themselves well. He narrowed his eyes, a flicker of coldness passing through them. Of course, they are free to refuse and go to war with us instead. That is, if they aren't afraid to die. As the 5 provinces of Xuantian reeled from the emergence of the Yao clan, other changes were stirring outside the known lands. In secret regions where none below the divine realm could tread, the veils of deep laws began to dissipate. Faint divine light erupted, shattering chaotic spatial storms. Thousands of brilliant divine runes formed a long, ancient corridor. Several young figures bathed in divine radiance stepped forth, carrying a sharp edge that made it difficult for others to look directly at them. Descendants of saints, reincarnated deities, and godsons of ancient tribes, 5 mysterious geniuses entered the central province. Each carried an aura of invincibility, intending to seize the Earth Emperor's secret realm and defeat the current generation. They sought to forge an invincible heart and achieve total dominance over this era. Each was accompanied by a true god as a protector. When these 5 figures appeared before the world, they sent shockwaves through the land. They were the ancient humans of the Lost Lands. This was a power that existed only in ancient texts, a lineage that had never truly appeared on the stage of Xuantian. Their history stretched back to before the primordial era. When the world suffered its great upheaval and shattered into the 5 provinces, The remaining fragments were swallowed by the void, becoming forbidden zones that only those in the divine realm could enter. It was said that even saints who wandered into those mists risked falling. After that upheaval, the various factions of the 5 provinces began a million-year struggle for luck and power. But during that time, a group of human experts descended from the heavens. Due to a difference in philosophy, that group split. One part settled in the 5 provinces and integrated with the local humans, while the other entered the forbidden zones and vanished. Since then, those who went into the forbidden zones were known as the ancient humans. Every faction that knew of their existence shared the same view. They were powerful and mysterious. After all, they had descended from the higher heavens. How could they be weak? Now that the Earth Emperor's secret realm had appeared, it had not only brought out the Yao clan, but had even stirred these ancient humans to return. When several geniuses who had recently unsealed themselves challenged these 5 newcomers, the world finally understood exactly what it meant to be powerful. These 5 ancient human geniuses were all under 100 years old, yet their cultivation had already reached the peak of the Tianyuan realm. They wielded powerful ancient techniques that had long been lost to Xuantian. Their combat strength was staggering. More importantly, each of the 5 had an incredible background. Lu Fengqi was the descendant of a saint, possessing a saint's bloodline talent. Kuan Wu was a reincarnated deity who could tap into the authority of his past life to command the mountains and rivers. Gu Shintong was a godson of an ancient tribe with royal blood, training in physical combat styles that could crush the laws of the world. Then there was Kong Chunyi, the giant of the Confucian Hall, and Xianyuan Tuo, the godson of the Xianyuan imperial clan. Setting aside the descendants of saints and reincarnated gods, the title of giant of the Confucian Hall alone was enough to make Xiantian boil with excitement. That title could be traced back to the era of the human emperor. Under the human emperor's rule, the Confucian Hall was a massive force of cultural and martial power. While it was unclear if this new Confucian Hall was the same as the one from the human emperor's time, the fact that these people descended from the higher heavens suggested a deep connection. The more people speculated, the more startled they became. It felt as if the sealed history of the human race was slowly peeling open its first page before the eyes of the world. Perhaps, in this coming great age, the human race would finally experience a true renaissance. It is a grand era indeed. With geniuses standing like trees in a forest and monsters emerging in droves, the struggle for the peak of the great Tao had begun. The already lively Xiantian realm became even more boisterous. In every corner of the 5 provinces, geniuses fought for dominance. The closer one got to the Great Ming Dynasty and the secret realm, the more intense the battles became. Many great men have graced the past, but the greatest rise today. This line from a poem written by Jiang Xuan began to circulate among the people. It perfectly captured the pride and ambition of the competing geniuses. In this magnificent era, who would be the one to defeat all rivals, reach the unsurpassed peak, and claim the title of the greatest of them all? Chapter 325. Rebellion in the Qin family over stolen divine bones. The Xiantian realm was a landscape of noise and upheaval. Countless geniuses and monsters emerged as explosive news and stunning battle records surfaced daily. Yet, an observant eye would notice a strange pattern. Most of these events were concentrated in the eastern, southern, and central provinces. The western and northern provinces remained relatively closed and quiet, with few world-shaking events to speak of. After all, the western and northern provinces were barren compared to the central province. Top-tier sects were scarce, and ancient inheritances were largely lost. Producing a monster capable of making a name for themselves across the realm was a rare feat for a cultivator. To perform staggering deeds like Jiang Xuan of the Jiang family was naturally a monumental task. But the times were changing. The shackles of heaven and earth were fading. The barriers protecting the Xiantian realm were thinning, and the signs of a great age were becoming unmistakable. Even the barren western and northern provinces began to transform. Recently, several shocking events had finally taken place. The first was in the western province. Jiang Ruolai, the Buddhist son of the Buddhist sect, achieved a sudden and profound enlightenment. He reached the Tianyuan realm in just 3 steps, mastering the supreme divine ability of the Tathagata kingdom and attaining the status of a Buddha. His breakthrough caused 3,000 worlds to manifest in the void, bathing the western province in infinite Buddhist light and converting 300 million cultivators to the Buddhist faith in an instant. Following this, Master Ban Ruo, the head of the Buddhist sect, made a proclamation. Jiang Ruolai has attained the status of a Buddha. This is a sign of the Buddhist sect's great prosperity. This era belongs to us. Under the guidance of Jiang Ruolai, the human race of Xiantian shall find ultimate bliss. As of today, the Buddhist sect officially returns to the world to deliver all living beings. The second event took place in the northern province. Ing Sihai, the emperor of the Great Qin and former godson of the Qin family, had secretly allied with over 70% of the top sects in the northern province to plot against the immortal Qin family. The Qin family could not withstand the onslaught and suffered devastating losses. Under the threat of total annihilation, more than half of the Qin clansmen chose to surrender and join the Great Qin Empire. Only the main lineage of the Qin family continued to resist, suffering heavy casualties. The war of extermination led by Ing Sihai was only halted when an ancient monster at the True God realm emerged from the Qin ancestral lands. Notably, at the beginning of that great war, Emperor Ing Sihai personally took the field to fight a fair duel against the current Qin god's son, Qin Zhan. In that battle, Ing Sihai fully displayed the domineering power of an emperor. Though both were in the earthly profound realm, he crushed and killed Qin Zhan with a single palm strike. Afterward, Ing Sihai devoured Qin Zhan's bloodline and divine bones. Upon integrating them, he mastered two innate divine techniques, causing his own bloodline to evolve. He broke through his bottlenecks with overwhelming force and ascended to the Tianyuan realm. A long-standing immortal family had been nearly exterminated by a newly established empire, especially one whose leader was previously only in the earthly profound realm. When this news spread, it shocked the entire Xuantian realm. Countless factions dispatched intelligence officers to investigate the Great Qin Empire and its mysterious emperor. When the details were revealed, everyone was stunned. It turned out that Ing Sihai was originally a member of the immortal Qin family and even served as their previous godson. According to the reports, Ing Sihai's status was originally very low because his father was a son-in-law who had married into the family. However, Ing Sihai was born with immense luck. At birth, he possessed innate divine bones that triggered world-shaking visions. This caught the eye of a Qin ancestor in the false god realm, who hid his presence and personally appointed him as the god's son. This move undoubtedly threatened the interests and the perceived legitimacy of the Qin main lineage. The main branch had produced its own genius, Qin Zhan, whose bloodline showed signs of ancestral regression. They could not stand by and watch the position of God's son go to the child of a mere son-in-law. Consequently, the main lineage plotted in secret. They forcibly stripped Ing Sihai of his divine bones and transplanted them into Qin Zhan. To eliminate any future trouble, they ordered the execution of Ing Sihai's entire branch. However, the plot was exposed. When the false god ancestor learned the truth, he emerged to protect Ing Sihai's kin. In his fury, he intended to execute everyone in the main lineage involved in the theft. Ing Sihai stopped him, declaring he would seek his own revenge. After that, the false god ancestor and Ing Sihai's kin followed him as he defected from the Qin family to start his own sect. Over several decades, Ing Sihai did not die from the loss of his bones. Instead, he found strength in destruction. He forged new, more powerful divine bones and mastered their innate techniques, rising once more with unstoppable momentum. 10 years ago, he performed the rites of state and established an empire, using Qin as the dynastic name. His intention was clear to all. Now, with the great age approaching, Ing Sihai had fulfilled his promise. He personally settled the grudge of the stolen bones and dragged the high and mighty immortal Qin family down from the clouds. Had the Qin family not produced a dying true god ancestor at the last moment, the family would likely have been partitioned by various sects and faded into history. As Ing Sihai's story spread through Xuantian, many young geniuses were captivated by his legend. Many even traveled to the northern province, hoping to join the Great Qin Empire. Under such a legendary emperor, how could the Great Qin fail to achieve the status of an immortal dynasty like the Great Gan in the central province? Following the war against the Qin family, Ing Sihai turned his gaze toward the Earth Emperor's secret realm in the central province. He announced his intention to arrive in person to compete against the monsters of Xuantian. He also declared that Great Qin was hungry for talent. Any genius who joined him in good faith would be granted a 7th-rank official position, 10 king-grade herbs, and a saint-level inheritance, regardless of their current cultivation. This announcement stirred the hearts of many, especially rogue cultivators and those of humble origins. They looked forward to Ing Sihai's arrival, hoping to join the Great Qin Empire and change their fates. 10 king-grade herbs and a saint-level inheritance were perks usually reserved for the core disciples of top-tier sects. The events in the northern province did not end there. The Qin family's divine mountain, which usually hung between heaven and earth surrounded by Dao laws and immortal mist, was now unrecognizable. It was a landscape of ruins and desolation. The ancient protective array had been shattered, the laws of the Dao had been wiped away, and even the internal spiritual springs had been looted by opportunists. Even the towering mountain itself was missing a massive section. The smooth cut was still marked by the sharp sword intent of the false god who had struck it. The 500 survivors of the Qin main lineage sat outside their ruined ancestral hall. Their eyes were hollow, and their faces were smeared with blood and grime they lacked the will to wipe away. They could not accept the bloody reality that their great immortal family had fallen so far in a single day. The true god ancestor of the Qin family, his body withered and frail, stood before the ancestral hall. As he listened to the clan leader, Qin Xianming, recount the details of the crisis, his face darkened. His fury manifested as physical heat, burning tiny black holes into the void. And that is how it happened. Qin Xianming said, his head bowed, his voice as quiet as a mosquito. The true god ancestor suddenly turned his head and stared at Qin Xianming. He laughed, though the sound was thick with rage. So, you are telling me that the catastrophe my family faces today is entirely due to your own selfish desires? To maintain the so-called purity of the main line, you persecuted a genius born with divine bones? A youth appointed as God's son by a false god ancestor? Just so your son, Qin Zhan, could take the position, you poisoned your own kin and stole his bones. Good. Very good. The ancestor laughed hysterically. In the next instant, he reached out and gripped Qin Xuanming's throat. He hissed through gritted teeth. Is your head filled with nothing but filth? To be continued.